All right, hello and welcome to the BCE Comics Pod. I realized I didn't have my notes to prepare for this. Here we go. This is Sunday, March 8th, 2026. And once again, this is the Marvel... No. This is the Big Collected Editions comic podcast. This is the podcast where we're going to read, rate, and review a large Big Collected Edition comic once a month. We have daily one-shots where we talk about the X-Men right now. I'm babbling. All right, I'm your host, Nick Smith. I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr's Shelf. How you doing, man?
Man, I am doing good. Look, I'm super proud of this. I've got the Superman mug, or not Superman, the superheroes mug up.
Superheroes mug. There you go.
I am finally getting better with my leg. I can carry things again. I'm walking around without crutches anymore, so that's good. So,
there you go.
Yeah, although I feel like I got this coffee going right before the show started, and I'm not sure I got the sugar mixed up very well, so here we go. This is good audio. Yeah, all right. Got to fuel that. Yeah, I'm excited to do this. Reading Volume 8 of The Incredible Hulk, The Curing of Dr. Banner. Stojr, yourself, you good?
Yeah, no, doing well. Definitely looking forward to kicking this off. One of the things that I started to collect with when I started to collect these epic collections and start to seek out new things that I wasn't used to was seeking out Sal Buscema's art. And obviously was introduced to him on Spectacular Spider-Man back in the 90s and things of that nature. But as I started to realize how prolific he was during this era, I started to pick up Defenders epics and Hulk epics. And he had a pretty massive Hulk run that kicked off right before this. I didn't know if you wanted to do the overview of the volume, or when you mean, or if I wanted to do some of those background bullets that I had there. We didn't rehearse all this.
No, we didn't. And it's as you were talking there, I was trying to get make sure I had YouTube open to make sure the live stream was up and running, and the music started going in my ears. I was like, because we're on a delay right now. Yeah, I've got some notes for some intro stuff. I know you do as well, and I think ours are kind of complementary. So let me start off with mine. Here we go. We've got there's the cover of the volume if you're watching on YouTube. All right, so Incredible Hulk Volume 8, The Curing of Dr. Banner. This collects Incredible Hulk number 201 to 226 and Incredible Hulk Annual number 6. This volume sees the end of Len Wein's run writing the Hulk, and the start of Roger Stern's run. And it features some experimentation on the title with moving the Hulk to New York and creating a few new supporting cast members. But the continual the continuity thread here is Sal Buscema's art, as you said, Stojr. So you've got some notes there. Go for it.
Yeah. So previously, Herb Trimpe had a pretty long run on Hulk. I didn't write down exactly when he started, but at a minimum, he drew things going back as far as the Wolverine introduction, which was about 2 years prior in issue 181. So Sal starts in issue 194, and this volume picks up on issue 201. So his run is just a couple of issues before this. So what's interesting too is that when you start to look at Sal's art, there's times where he's partnered up with somebody and you can really tell their influence, right? Because he was doing so much that it's not like he needed assistance from somebody else. Well, I guess maybe he did from a volume perspective, and he was giving other people opportunities. But he's certainly capable of knocking out something amazing looking just on his lonesome. And you can really tell when there's those solo issues versus something like the Ernie Chan issues that are in here that we'll talk about. That you can tell there's just an influence there. So it's sort of a malleable style that can lean in different directions, and I find that it's kind of interesting. So during this time, which is around 1976 to 1978, Spider-Man's dealing with his clone for the first time. The X-Men are experiencing their second genesis. Thor, who Sal's brother John was drawing, is in the midst of the War of the Gods. The Fantastic Four were certain that Counter Earth must die. And interestingly enough, the Hulk was visiting Counter Earth about 2 volumes previous to that. So, volume 6, and we're talking about volume 8 today, was Crisis on Counter Earth. So, Counter Earth was a big deal back in the 70s there. The Avengers are tussling with Thanos and the Final Threat. The Thing found others to go to against Hydra, and while Iron Man sought out 10 rings to rule the world. So if you weren't picking up on it, all of those are the epic collections that you can pick up from this exact time period and what's going on in those particular volumes. But right before this, the Hulk was shrunk down to explore Talbot's brain size to save him as he starts to grow to normal size. So they shrink. Basically, they shrunk the Hulk down in issue 200 to go inside Talbot's brain, and as he started to grow back, they said, "Hey, wait a second! You're going to destroy Talbot. We're going to shrink you down even further." Basically, sending him into this microverse, quantum realm, whatever kind of word you want to have for it, and that's where we pick up today in issue 201 and in this volume. So that's a little bit of a primer for like where we're at with getting things started here.
Yeah, it was admittedly a little bit jarring to see that we're starting with, wait, the Hulk is shrunk down and he's in Talbot's brain? What? So yeah, we'll have to go back and read volume 7 at some point to get the start of that, right? All right, Stojr, should we hop into the first issue?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. This is Incredible Hulk number 201, The Sword and the Sorcery, written by Len Wein, art by the late great Sal Buscema and Joe Staton. The Hulk seems to suddenly appear before a sorcerer who has seemingly summoned him, but we're told that the Hulk is actually shrinking, and so traveling through the microverse, I guess the sorcerer summoning him, it's a coincidence, or maybe it's not. Maybe his magic power is still doing something. Who knows? Anyway, this realm has been terrified by a Conan ripoff called Cronak the Barbarian, and Hulk wants nothing to do with it, but then his strength, when the Hulk's strength is questioned, he goes to face Cronak, only to unexpectedly turn into Bruce Banner. Well, Cronak has nothing to fear from Banner, so he throws Banner into the gladiatorial arena to face the scientist himself in combat, only for Banner to do the inevitable and become the Hulk again, overthrowing the tyrant, and then shrinking away into nothingness. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I find it's interesting that we get a Conan crossover without Conan, so that's kind of a nice little trick here. Sal's art's got me completely dialed in. Like this is what I'm here for. He's partnered up with someone here, but I don't think, contrary to what I said earlier, I can't tell that Joe is necessarily driving Sal's style in one direction for the other. So this feels relatively pure Sal's art and the way that he draws the Hulk, which I think is really solid. It's one of my favorite interpretations of the character. There's a lot of influence or a lot of like things that remind me of Planet Hulk, which happened much later. So you get the gladiator fight here, which obviously occurs during Planet Hulk, and you get also this kind of concept that someone drew the Hulk to them for help while the Hulk was sort of spiraling out of control on some other mission. So in Planet Hulk, which is spoilers for a story that's 30 or 40 years in the future, whatever it is, from what we're reading today, the idea is that Hulk kind of gets sent off into space and he ends up on this world that he ends up claiming and becomes Planet Hulk. Well, and there's a lot of similarities to what we'll see in this volume with Jarella and things of that nature, right? With Planet Hulk, right? He finds somebody, gets married, things of that nature. But the backstory to Planet Hulk that I think you find out later, maybe not during the original storyline, but it's kind of laid out later, is that there was some sort of mystic or priests or whatever that were praying for a savior that kind of drew him to them. And it might be more complicated than that, but it's very interesting that it's like the same types of story beats happen here that happen in Planet Hulk later on. So
yeah, Planet Hulk is like the one Hulk storyline that I did actually read and follow when it came out. I picked up a couple of issues of the Hulk during Peter David's, was it Peter David's run? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Peter David.
I mean, he didn't do Planet Hulk, but he
No,
did a prolific
but
Hulk run. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like in the '90s when I was in middle school, I picked up a couple of issues then. And then otherwise, I've read the first two epics of the Hulk, and that's been my only knowledge of the Hulk really. And aside from what you've picked up from the MCU and just media in general, I mean, I'm sure I saw a couple episodes of the Hulk TV show when I was a kid, but yeah, the Hulk is kind of a unknown quantity for me in many ways. And as such, I was not expecting to be thrown straight into a sword and sorcery tale with the Hulk, right? That was not what I was expecting. But it seemed like a fun and harmless in-between story, having not read Volume 7 yet. Again, I didn't know exactly where this was coming from. But I find it interesting that Wing did decide to do a spoof on Conan the Barbarian, because Marvel had the license to Conan at this point. Yeah, and the flashback that they gave of Kronak's life is pretty much Conan's story too. And of course the cover makes us think this is Conan anyway. But maybe it's a good thing they didn't use Conan, because that means they can reprint this book. Unless
Well,
some...
and then story-wise, they probably wouldn't have wanted to have the ending be that ending for Conan, right?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
it's kind of overthrown. So I think that subverts some expectations that if you have him here, he's it's not going to end well for him, right?
Yeah.
With it being a different character. It's interesting though. You say sort of your background with the Hulk. I probably should have mentioned that during my introductions too about
Hmm.
how I'm kind of coming to this. So I started to pick up the Hulk at the end of Peter David's run. So Peter David has five omnibuses, four in chronological order, and then he's done like some work post his original run that is collected. I think it's in the Maestro omnibus. So there's a lot, right? That's at least 200 issues, I think, that Peter David wrote across four omnibuses, maybe more. So there's a ton of stuff there. So this is like during that Onslaught era. So that's where I started to get into where everybody was exiting comics. I was jumping on board and started to collect the Avengers and Hulk and things like that. So I followed Hulk up until Planet Hulk. Not be, or maybe I stuck around for World War Hulk right afterwards. But so I changed over to trying to get the collected editions after that, the thin trades, because I just couldn't keep up with the singles at that point. So I followed it through. There was a so at the end of Peter David's run, they basically end the main series, and then there's I think like 100 issue run or thereabouts, and it culminates with Planet Hulk. So there's a lot of like the typical, Hulk going to a small town, like the TV show version that you would think of, right? Like, him wandering through a town, something happens, issues over with, wander somewhere else, right? That's kind of the idea of the Hulk during that period. And that's kind of what I expected here. And it's not what we get. Like, this is not TV show Hulk, right? I expected one and done storylines in this volume. But I expected it through the lens of the TV show, and I'm pleasantly surprised that that's not what we get, because it's an interesting dynamic. So
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Hulk number 202. This is Havoc at the Heart of the Atom. Hulk continues to fall through the microverse and lands in a familiar place where he meets a lost love named Jarella, who is about to be sacrificed to the mountain god. And having not known the background of Jarella by any means, I'm also wondering myself, why is all this in Talbot's brain? Right? Has she always been in Talbot's brain? I don't know. Anyway, it turns out that a bunch of earthquakes have plagued this land since the last time the Hulk was here, so Hulk frees Jarella and faces the mountain god himself. Well, the god turns out to be a robot, which is easily defeated, but Hulk is then faced with a new foe named Cyclop. That's Cyclop with a P, so Cyclop. Not to be confused with the X-Man, of course. Back in the regular universe, though, Glenn Talbot is preparing for surgery, which would remove the minuscule Hulk from his head, but if he is so small, how are they going to know where he is? That's my editorial. All right, Stojr, your thoughts.
So minor corrections because I looked this up. So Cyclop is not a new character.
Hmm.
He was in has previous appearances in Avengers 88 and Hulk 140. And I think in the next issue there might be like a little flashback footnote catch up because I think I researched it and then I turned the page and it was like, oh yeah, here's him fighting the Avengers or something like that. So somewhere in this issue or the next, it mentions that. The the introduction of Jarella or the reintroduction of Jarella here is interesting for me because I've always heard about Jarella. I've heard the comparison to the Planet Hulk, but I never actually read anything with Jarella in it. I probably picked up an issue where Hulk visits that world, but it was good to kind of see a book with her in it. And when I've like heard about the character over time, I just knew he had like a green girlfriend or wife or something like that in the past or whatever she is. This is kind of an interesting like twist on like the Jack and the Beanstalk tale. So I kind of enjoyed it from that angle too. It's good to see the Hulk happy, but I also never knew that Betty married Talbot. Maybe I forgot that. So that's interesting for me too, because I didn't realize that they were married or get divorced or whatever ends up happening with them. But just was not something that was in my own personal lexicon. And then the you had mentioned like it's all in Hulk's head, and I know, or in Talbot's head, and I know that they need to extract it. So I'm kind of thinking about this. I'll use movie logic names from the MCU that like this was just a gateway to the quantum realm. Like once they shrunk Hulk down a second time, he's kind of bouncing around the quantum realm. And is that technically in his head, or is it just like a dimensional doorway to something else? Like he's, there's a lot of places that you can go. So that's where I'm thinking about it. So, he's not literally in his head. That was just the last place that he was, but that's Stoger's kind of mind logic. It's not on the page anywhere.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing anything about that on the page, and I'm guessing that ideas was brought up in the Ant-Man movie, right? The second Ant-Man movie into the quantum realm.
So, well, the quantum realm is introduced before that, right? So it's introduced in the first Ant-Man movie, and it's how they use the time travel mechanics in Endgame to rescue all the Avengers and things like that.
Man, I
So,
don't remember any of this. I saw the
yeah,
first
so
Ant-Man movie, but I never saw the second one.
so Quantum Realm's actually the third Ant-Man movie.
Oh,
The second
wait, Ant-Man
Ant-Man
has
movie
had
is
three?
Ant-Man's had
He
three.
doesn't even have that many
So
Epic collections.
well, it's not even that Ant-Man,
Oh, yeah.
technically.
Okay, fair.
So
Fine.
the first Ant-Man movie is really good, great heist movie. The second Ant-Man movie gets beat up and is not as great. I don't mind it. I think it's fine. The third Ant-Man movie is dog shit, and you can avoid it. A lot of wasted potential in that. But yeah, the idea of the quantum realm, or if we were talking about in comics wise, before the movies came out, we would call it the microverse. Before that idea of the quantum realm was sort of perpetuated in the first Ant-Man and then in the MCU because they used that as the time travel device in Endgame. So.
Well, either way, I think this does kind of illustrate the danger of us not reading these things in order, particularly when we get to a character, that we're maybe not so familiar with. Yeah, I had no idea Glenn Talbot and Betty Ross were married. I had no clue that had happened. And of course, this issue was the one that was the shock for me that, oh wait, the Hulk is in Talbot's head? Now I want to know what happens, right? I did enjoy this issue more than the previous one, though. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we have a supporting character that means something to the Hulk, but I found it silly, weird, it was fun. Sal is so good at drawing facial expressions, and to see the different emotions kind of coming out in the Hulk in this issue and the previous issue, I found really enjoying. And I'm starting to think that this version of Hulk is kind of like a cartoon character. When I approach him that way, it's I don't know. It feels more interesting for me, right? All right, Stoker, I have a no prize for this one.
Oh, nice.
All right, so in the Mighty Marvel tradition, we're going to hand out some no prize awards, which not the same as the Marvel no prize awards, but this gives us a chance to highlight some of the fun and weird things that we find in a volume, or highlight what the volume does best. So, without further ado, the Houdini Award is given to an unconscious Jarella who is somehow able to free herself from the ropes that have tied her to a catapult, but still is launched into the air from the catapult. So, yeah, that does not make any sense whatsoever. So how she gets out of those ropes, that's impressive. All right, let's go on to Incredible Hulk number 203, Assault of Cyclop. So while Cyclop was able to imprison the Hulk, his natural strength allows him to break free, so Cyclop resorts to hypnotizing the Hulk and sending him out to fight the green-skinned people of Ka'ai, with the Hulk believing that he is fighting an army of Cyclops. But the sorcerers of Ka'ai break the spell, Hulk turns on Cyclops, defeats him, and it seems he's ready to live out the rest of his days with Jarella by his side. Except back on Earth, the surface world, Big Land, Samson has removed the atom from General Talbot, which contains the Hulk and this world, and he manages to bring the Hulk back to his normal size, and Jarella joins him for the ride. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, I was posting in one of the Discord threads to rally people to come to our live stream so that all of our fans know that we're here.
All two of them?
Yes, both of them. Let me flip back to my notes. So yeah, I think that the people seem really smart and understanding here as the Hulk pummels them is kind of an interesting thing. The Hulk is once again causing some problems for this like tiny world. Like they've talked about like how like he accidentally slapped it with his hand when he was getting enlarged, or his foot or something like that the last time. So it gives me a little bit of like of Mice and Men vibes as I think about that. And Jarella was like quick to just kind of leave the Hulk. Like, wasn't she just like getting married to him a minute ago? And now she's like, they're in the large world or whatever. She just kind of drops him instantly. It's a little jarring from that perspective. But I enjoyed the issue. I think it's always interesting to see how the Hulk interacts with with his supporting cast, and we don't get a whole lot of them in this book, right? So the supporting cast throughout this epic collection, we kind of check in on them, but they're not like a real big theme. There's a couple issues here and there, and this is one of them where there's a lot of interactions, but for the most part, this is I think you called it experimental. This is an interesting volume where the Hulk's kind of on his own for a good part of this. Not to say that there's not guest stars and other people, but not the typical cast that you would think of.
Yeah, the supporting characters definitely seem to change frequently in this book, and you can tell they're trying to mix it up a little bit. I don't know if there's a record of historical sales of the book or any of these books. I'm sure there's something out there. Maybe Mike's Amazing World of Comics has that. I think I got that name right, but yeah, they're definitely trying to do something. I thought this issue was fine. Again, I like the cartoony nature that Sal Buscema gives the Hulk. And in this one, we get some flashbacks to previous issues where Hulk had been to the subatomic world. Okay, I was willing to accept that he had met Jarella once, and now this is the second time. Apparently, this is the third time. He's been to the same subatomic world twice now, yeah. So that's a little weird that he manages to... maybe it's as you say, Stojr, that he just enters a subatomic world via being shrunk down, but I always kind of took it as, well, if you're shrunk down, that must be in the exact same spot, and there's countless worlds upon worlds in these atoms, but that would make it impossible, if not, yeah, impossible for him to have visited the same place 3 times, right? All inside Glenn Talbot's head.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more that microverse, universe type of thing, where once you kind of cross a threshold, you can kind of go to all different spots. So.
All right, well, let's move on to number 204. This is Vicious Circle. Herb Trimpe fills in as plotter and penciler for this one. Okay, so now that Jarella has been brought to our world, she has been quarantined to ensure that she is safe in our polluted atmosphere. But that doesn't make the Hulk very happy. Well, Ross and the men at Gamma Base are able to gas the Hulk, change him back into Bruce Banner, and then convince Bruce to travel back in time to prevent himself from ever turning into the Hulk. Well, with Jarella's blessing, Banner does so, only to accidentally kill Rick Jones and return to a present where Rick Jones is presumably dead. Well, after a fever dream, Banner is convinced he has to change the past again, so he once again relives the moment that turns himself into the Hulk. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
I like the art. Like it's good. It's different than Sal's, so it's an interesting way to break things up, and it's solid. It's not like a guest penciler. Obviously, Herb drew the Hulk for a while before this, but it's not like some random guest penciler kind of fills in and doesn't look good. I mean, this is really solid sort of art in here. It was interesting. I laughed because like they're maybe they would have saved some money if they didn't build this like monorail out to this like base out in the middle of nowhere. Like, do you really need that type of infrastructure for what you're trying to build here? That didn't make much sense. I think also, we get a lot of play with like cigars and stuff like that throughout this. So, on one of the pages you have the Hulk sort of hiding behind something and getting the drop on General Ross and kind of pulling the cigar out of his mouth, but and then a couple pages later you get the typical he's chewing on the cigar and there's smoke everywhere as he's yelling type of stuff. So they really like that sort of mindset in here. I did think story wise though, like the whole fever dream thing was a little confusing for me. It didn't make as much sense as I thought it should. And you get this sort of temporal man in here. It's very like 60s kind of early Marvel plot and the way it's set up. So didn't hate it. I just thought it was like extra silly, for this particular issue. But it is a plot device that they go back to multiple times, and I think at least twice in this overall volume, which is make Bruce Banner choose to be the Hulk because for the greater good, right? Like he wants nothing more than to get rid of this monkey off of his back. So put him into a storyline where he has to choose to keep it.
Yeah. I honestly wish they had spent a little more time with this story, right? The idea of Banner having to travel back in time, accidentally killing Rick, and then changing the present has a lot of potential that they could have covered before sending him back and changing his mistakes. Precursor to Back to the Future, right? I guess maybe you had to have that film before people would really get into more involved time travel stories. I don't know. Now, admittedly, I was not a fan of the Hulk coming back to fight Kronos. I was okay with that being changed into a fever dream that inspires Banner to go back in time. But even then, I think this story had such wasted potential. I love the idea of it, not so much the execution.
Yeah, when you think about it through the lens of the overall volume, it almost feels like just like a fill-in issue, right? Bring the old artist back. Sal needs a break, whatever.
Well,
and squeeze it in. Story-wise, it doesn't. We get some other stories in this volume that are clearly fill-in issues, but not this one. I mean, it's plot-wise, it moves things forward, but otherwise,
Yeah, I mean, you say that, and I was kind of wondering if maybe it was a fill-in issue, that maybe this is something that Herb Trimpe had, in a drawer somewhere, but then they just had to rework a couple of pages to fit Jarella in there and some of the other stuff. But I don't know. I genuinely do not know.
Could be, yeah.
All right, let us go on to... Which one's this? We just did 204. We're going to do... Oh, I had a no prize for this one. Wait a minute. This is not right. That no prize is for later, I think. I may have screwed something up here. Oh, I just skipped a slide. Okay, let's do 205. Now all my notes are mixed up. Sorry. Here we go, 205. Do Not Forsake Me. Sal Buscema returns on art. Okay, so Bruce and Jarella are enjoying themselves in Santa Fe when a renewed Crypto Bro, the Crypto Man, tears into a bank for some much-needed cash. But when the man controlling Crypto Man sees Jarella and suspects she is Hulk adjacent, he sends his Crypto Robot to attack her to somehow siphon her powers. Well, this prompts Banner to turn into the Hulk and defeat the Cryptotomaton, but during the battle, Jarella is gravely injured. Doc Samson is unable to use his science to save the Hulk's love, so Hulk vows to find the help of magic to save her. All right, Stoja, your thoughts?
I love the art in this issue. Interesting, my copy has a printing error in that the first page 81 is ripped, but not ripped like it just got ripped. If I unfold the rip, it actually extends past the page.
Oh, so it
It
didn't get cut; it got folded over during the cutting process.
yeah. So I don't know if you can see if I can show it here the correct way. So this hold on, let me unfold it real quick. So I'm not gonna be able to do it backwards, but you can kind of
Yep.
you see how the paper's kind of going a little bit higher than
Oh,
the
gotcha.
page.
Mm-hmm.
So it caught that and then ripped, and then it was like it's kind of folded in there. So
Ah.
it's there's a tear in the page, but it's not like somebody like picked it up and dropped it or ripped it or something like that. It was obviously happened at the printer. So
Yep, that happens
I'm gonna
sometimes.
tape that down or something like that. So the joy that we get in the first half of this book almost spoils the end, right? Like I almost feel like they're too happy in the first half of the book. And I really feel for the way that Banner and the Hulk are experiencing this, because once Jarella gets her like Captain Stacy moment, it sets the Hulk off with a very real reaction, not only in this issue but across the next couple of issues that we're going to go through here. It reminds me a bit of how Hulk reacted to spoilers for the future, although it's not a real death, but the death of Betty in about 260 issues. He kind of goes and throws a fit and reacts very much in the way that we see here. So I always find it interesting, and I never think about it through the lens of like a writer is stealing from another writer or anything like that. But it's almost like music, right? Like there's like these beats that happen over time. And any story that you might appreciate, you should always go back and and look at the history of that character that you're reading, because that might be a beat that has happened 20 or 30 years earlier. We talked about that a bit with Planet Hulk earlier. And if it's not your character, it might be somebody else's character or one of the classics, right? Like how many things are how many stories are just a variation of Macbeth or something like that. So interesting stuff. But anyway, what did you think of 205?
No, this one's pretty good. I like this version of the Hulk and how he speaks. Right, I don't know why I feel very attuned to this sometimes, but he's very monosyllabic, although he's still fairly good at reasoning. So I'm not sure I would say he lacks intelligence. Sure, maybe he's definitely not the most intelligent man in the world, but he can reason through some things. And I like that the man controlling the Crypto Man desires fame. Right, that seems to be his goal, and yet we never see his face or ever know his name. And the point is made very obvious at the end, but it's still a nice touch. And I was a little surprised at the range of emotions that we're seeing from the Hulk. Again, I haven't really read a whole lot of Hulk, so it seems that his emotions run from annoyed to angry. So to see him weep and to grieve, I thought was a bit unusual. I'm not sure if I like it. Like, I would expect his immediate reaction to be anger, because that's what Hulk is. He's just a bundle of anger. But interesting way to go with him. All right, now, how about my no prize here? Okay. The Closet Award goes to Major Glenn Talbot, who really admires Doc Samson. And I mean, he really admires Doc Samson. I know it's the 70s, but, it's okay, Glenn. You are allowed to feel your feelings. It's all right, dude.
I picked up on this too, and I was also wondering if this has anything to do with some of the developments with him and Betty later on in the issue.
As to why their marriage doesn't work out?
Yes. And I'll quickly show, you can kind of see the Hulk here yelling at
Didn't do it?
General Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's after Betty's sick and dying that I was mentioning earlier, and how the Hulk reacts to this. You mentioned that you think of him as a ball of anger. I never think of him that way. Like, to be honest with you, I think of like, yeah, the madder he gets, the stronger he gets, that kind of thing. But I always think of him more like a
Yeah.
child throwing a fit,
Hmm.
And sometimes he's throwing a fit because he's like just sad or upset and things like that. And you go back to that, like he just wants to be left alone. So, um, I don't know. For me, like, seeing the range of emotions here that the Hulk displays, especially as we get into the next issue, we'll transition to, is always a good time for me.
Yeah, and actually, I agree with you on that because that's something I've been thinking more and more as I read the Hulk. Is he is a child, right? And since he struggles to express himself, that's where the anger comes out, and so that's kind of what I
Hmm.
expect is when something goes wrong, he gets mad because that tends to be what a toddler would do, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's go to number 206, A Man Brute Berserk. Well, the Hulk bounds his way to New York, fighting off jets and other attempts to bring him back to Gamma Base, including vandalizing the Statue of Liberty by ripping off her arm and torch. Well, when he gets to Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, he finds Strange is not at home, and he waits, as he hopes Strange's magic can save Jarella. But he is once again confronted by the police with another brawl that ensues until Doctor Strange finally returns, but the Defenders come with him. All right, Soja, your thoughts here.
I feel like the Hulk kind of freaking out through all this is very relatable reaction to the grief and the rage that he's trying to work through, and accept the fact that she's no longer there. I think him going and sort of sitting and waiting for Doctor Strange shows a lot of like restraint from the Hulk. I think one of the things you're gonna find, or we will find as we read through this volume, is that you know the Hulk isn't really doing anything wrong most of the time. Like it's usually like the people, like it's the cop. It's not the Hulk just sitting on the sidewalk. It's the cops or the army shooting at him and getting hurt by the ricochets of their own bullets or something along those lines, right? So, if they just leave him alone, then everything would be okay. Um, you know, he throws a lot of silent fits in the MCU. He doesn't really, he talks in like the Thor Ragnarok movie, and I guess that's the closest to this version of Hulk that we get. Whereas in the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, you just get like a grunting silent Hulk. He's much more like the '60s Hulk, I would assume, in that movie. Whereas this kind of lines up more with Ragnarok, where Hulk kind of can speak and short sentences and things of that nature. General Ross almost seems like a good guy in this comic, which again is like I'm trying to adapt to my thinking about like who these ancillary characters are and what I think of them. We get a Marvel set of pages where there's like a Fantastic Four check-in, Doctor Strange's house, a little Jarvis cameo, a Spider-Man name drop, so it's kind of nice to kind of go around here. And then we get another supporting character that I didn't expect, which is Clay Quartermain. I don't know much about Clay Quartermain other than if you ever read the Alias comic by Bendis in the 2000s, he shows up there as a friend, I mean, I think maybe an ex of Alias, so of Jessica Jones. So it's interesting. It's not a character I knew a lot about, so to see him in this comic is cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I this is the first time I've ever seen Clay Quartermain. I'm not familiar with this character at all, so I don't know where he comes from or anything like that. But I really enjoyed this issue. This is the kind of stuff I like from the Hulk. A lot of silly destruction, right? And Sal's art is fantastic in this one. His cinematic sense of humor shines, particularly on page 109. I'm gonna risk putting the comic viewer up for this one because I think it's worth it. Um, let's see. Here we go. All right. So on 209, you see at the top left there, we see the Hulk just sitting on the curb waiting for Doctor Strange. But then in subsequent panels, the camera pans out and we see the Hulk is surrounded by a police squadron. And that was just hilarious. That was great. And, to your point, the Hulk is doing nothing. He's doing nothing wrong. He's just sitting there. But everyone knows him for his reputation and they're preparing for the worst. So I just thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I think that like, this is. I'll complain more about this later, but the idea of setting him in New York for this volume is an interesting dynamic that I don't think that they get a chance to fully explore. I think they kind of squander it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because and look, you got plenty of heroes in New York. Like he doesn't need to be in New York, but the idea of like the Hulk being in the city and hulking out in the city and how you deal with that is something I feel like I wish they would have played with a little bit more. So we'll talk about more as we go through the other issues.
Yeah. All right, I've got another no prize here.
Let's say it.
All right. The violation of New York City Administration Code 19136 goes to Doctor Strange for obstructing the sidewalk in front of his Sanctum Sanctorum. I mean, seriously, this guy's a menace, right? He could hurt people with that invisible force field. People just want to walk down the road, right?
He got tired of people not picking up their dog crap on his front step. So.
So I mean, you could cause a concussion, right? If a little kid's running around the corner and they run right in front of the Sanctum Sanctorum and bam, right into his invisible force field, that's dangerous stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, let's go to 207. Alone against the Defenders. All right, so Hulk battles against the Defenders and naturally is causing lots of destruction. Eventually, the Hulk is talked down, and he is able to explain to Doctor Strange that he was seeking his help. Well, Strange goes to Gamma Base in his astral form, but finds that Jarella is truly dead, and he has to break the news to the Hulk. Well, after the Hulk has his temper tantrum, he breaks down and sobs, then finally leaves to go back on his own again. All right, Soji, your thoughts?
I guess my first thought is I never knew there was a female Red Guardian. So that was interesting. Like I think of the male version that we've gotten in some of the movies, and I've seen that. I'm trying to think of what the Russian Avengers squad's called that the Red Guardians usually on.
Oh, I don't know.
I think they show up in some X books from time to time in Avengers. There's like Dark Star, I think, is like another character or something like that.
Yeah.
It might be just like the Red Guard or something like that. I'm not sure, but anyway, I always think of a male version there for some reason, and I didn't realize this. I'm interested to know what I kind of want to go back, and I should have done this before here, and line up like what issue of the Defenders came out alongside this, and was Sal doing double duty on the art at this time? Because Sal did the first at least 3 volumes of the Defenders, so through issue 30 or 40, and I maybe even more because I don't have the 4th volume's not out yet. I know they jump ahead to volumes like 6, 7, and 8, or 7, 8, and 9, or something like that. So that's all. That's interesting from like an art standpoint and things like that. Again, I'll go back to the idea that like he's the Hulk is very relatable here in how he's acting. Right, mm-hmm. Like he's the most logical person on the pages here. Like I mean, I understand he's the monster and things like that, but like no one is like everybody else is acting a certain way so that we get a fight on the page to make the comic interesting. The Hulk is the only one acting like a regular, natural character that is reacting to, his fiance, wife, whatever, dying. So. What'd you think?
Yeah. Real quick before I get into that, is it the Winter Guard, the Soviet Avengers Winter Guard? Okay. I had to. Hopefully, my typing didn't show up on the audio, but okay.
No, I didn't hear that, and so I don't interrupt you. The one last thought that I forgot to mention is that emotional turnoff on that last page is almost chilling, like the way that he's going from tears to just nothing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I thought we had a really fun battle to start this, and as we kind of mentioned before, I do like how the Hulk is basically being portrayed as a toddler, right? He has big emotions, but a difficulty in expressing those in a healthy way, so he just reacts. He just happens to have the muscle to where his reactions are incredibly destructive, right? I mean, he ripped the arm off of the Statue of Liberty. That's something. That's pretty big. And no wonder people view him as a menace, right? It's destroying a quasi-sacred landmark here in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to Incredible Hulk Annual number 6. This is Beware the Beehive, written by David Kraft, art by Herb Trimpe, Frank Giacoya, and Mike Esposito. Well, the Hulk is hanging out with Doctor Strange, who receives a mysterious robot visitor. Doctor Strange follows, and he's transported to the Beehive, where the Enclave is attempting to make another perfect human like they did with him / Adam Warlock. And they want the brain surgery skills of Doctor Strange to oversee this new endeavor. Well, the Enclave succeeds in creating a new superhuman called Paragon, and the Enclave orders Paragon to attack Strange to test his loyalty. Meanwhile, Strange sent a magical message to the Hulk to have him come and help Doctor Strange, so the Hulk is on a side mission, jumping from place to place and beating up the citizenry until he eventually arrives at the Beehive. Well, the two heroes hold off Paragon enough for him to change shape, release himself from the Enclave's control, destroy the Beehive, and return to his cocoon as the Hulk and Strange escape. All right, Stojer, your thoughts?
So the first couple of pages, I feel like we get dropped into the middle of a Doctor Who episode, with the way that some of these robots are drawn. I find anytime we get, computer screens from the 60s, 70s, 80s, are pretty hilarious. Like there's a pretty, accurate pixelated version of Hulk on page 135, which I think is pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
The whole issue, the whole placement of this issue just kind of feels completely out of place, right? We just had the Hulk have throw a fit, fight the Defenders, see Doctor Strange, and then not get what he needs and leave. And now he's doing a team up with Doctor Strange on the very next page. And I feel like this would have been better if they had placed the annual, even if it was slightly inaccurate chronologically. If they would place the annual like before the Jarella storyline as opposed to after, because it feels oddly in the wrong spot when I read it. And it's an issue that could go anywhere. Like it doesn't move forward with Hulk's plot really at all. It's just a team up issue. It almost feels more like a Doctor Strange book in some ways than a Hulk one. And I feel like this would have been more impactful had I read the Fantastic Four issues that they're referencing here. But with that said, the art is really solid. The action's interesting. So as an annual, it's a pretty solid annual. I think anytime there is an annual that looks good and has a coherent story, having me live through the 90s with all of the trash annuals that we got during that time period, I grade on a curve with these, and I'm happy with this one. What did you think?
Yeah. No, that's fair on the annuals. We'll get to a point where annuals are just, tryouts for new writers and stuff. They don't mean anything anymore. And I don't know if reading the Fantastic Four issues that relate to the Enclave matter, honestly. It's the kind of the exact same thing. They're trying to build a perfect human, and it turns into Adam Warlock eventually. There's really nothing there that adds to it, I don't think. At least for this one, I love how the Hulk is hopping from encounter to encounter, but otherwise this is really just a Doctor Strange story rather than a Hulk story. So, and I guess maybe that's the problem of having a character which is reactive, right? He's not usually the instigator of events, right? He's always reacting to things that come to him, so you have to have some kind of outside force that gets the story going. But Marvel has made it work. All right, let's go to 208. I forgot to write the title of this one down. A Monster in Our Midst. I had it on the slideshow. Here's where sometimes when I neglect to go back and fix my notes, my spelling errors lead to something silly. The Hulk leaves Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum. Sanctum Sanctorum, of course. And of course, the Hulk is feeling sad about the death of Jarella, but takes a nap after preventing a prison break, as you do. While asleep, Bruce Banner wakes up and decides to get an apartment in New York City, thanks to a surprisingly accommodating young woman named April Summers. As Bruce, I was going to make a joke about April showers, but it was summers, not showers, so yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, so as Bruce is settling into this new apartment that he stumbles upon, and I can't imagine it's that easy to get an apartment in New York, but it's the 70s, whatever. As Bruce is settling in, the absorbing man breaks out of jail and is mysteriously transported before three silhouetted figures who wish for the absorbing man to kill the Hulk. All right, Soja, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the opening page here is another reason why I feel like the annual throws me off with its placement, because this almost feels like he's walking away from the Defenders still, depressed and kind of emotionless as he deals with his grief. I would have much rather this be picked up right after the previous issue than have some space in between there. Len's narration throughout this, while intended to not overly depress the reader, kind of feels unnecessary and a little silly at times. So, it kind of takes me out of reading it. It almost like there's sometimes when the narration is just there to kind of frame up what you're seeing on the page or give some backstory, and there's other times where you feel like somebody's like talking to you, and this definitely comes off like it's like somebody's talking to me. While that is not something that I universally hate, I feel like it was obvious he was trying to soften the blow of the depressed Hulk after the death of his girlfriend, fiance, whatever she was. I really like Sal's transition pages. I know we talked in the X-Men epic about JR and how he drew Mystique, but and I don't have a lot of the history to know how the Hulk's transitions have drawn before. But Sal seems to settle into this multi-panel, small panel transition from one, either Banner to Hulk or Hulk to Banner. And as he's falling asleep, you see that change, and I think that's really cool. I think it's well done there. April here is somebody that I guess imagine all 20 somethings were back in the 70s. Just like super chippy and accommodating and flower child and whatnot. But yeah, I don't understand what these sort of like silhouetted look like the Watchers are yet. In fact, if we find out in the next issue, I forget, so I have to. Your recaps usually spur my memories here, but as I look at them on the last page here, they look like a bunch of Watchers in the background here. And the Absorbing Man just looks completely ridiculous with his pointed head. But I think he does provide, as we'll see going forward, a foil for the Hulk. I can never get the image of the Absorbing Man out of my head that they did to him in the 2000s, I think it was. Do you
I'm not
do you
sure I
remember
know.
like yeah, so the Absorbing Man is like an interesting villain. Like he's got these powers. He's never a smart guy. He ends up getting paired up with what's it, Thundra, who gets
Oh
introduced in
yeah,
Secret
yeah.
Wars. And I think they're like married and or at least long time, together or whatnot. But at some point in the 2000s, they sort of show that he's got like a drug problem, right? So they show him. He gets lured to a place where he snorts cocaine, but because he's the Absorbing Man, when he's high, he kind of like turns into cocaine. So he turns into a giant pile of cocaine, and the people that lured him there come in with like leaf blowers and like blow him apart so that he's not like he can't hold his form because he's A, high, and B, cocaine. And then they package him up and sell him as drugs because like that gives like some sort of like powers or high or extra high or something like that. And I have to look up what comic it's from, but like that panel, those pages are stuck in my head of like just him being like turned into powder and like packaged up and sold off. They probably cut him with something to spread it out even more. So the ridiculous of the Absorbing Man, along with what we see in the original Ang Lee Hulk movie from the early 2000s, are my experiences with him.
So
What did you think of this issue?
I actually really like the Absorbing Man as a villain. I did not know that that happens to him. I'm going to talk about him more in the next issue, though, because he plays a bigger role in that one. As for the shadowy Watchmen looking like figures, or Watcher looking like figures, I don't have anything to say about them right now, because this spurs kind of a point in my head that I forget to mention later in kind of my summary or wrap up. But those three shadowy guys in the background, it's a plot point that will be completely dropped. We're not going to get a resolution of that, at least not in this volume. And I think that is maybe one of my big complaints that you'll see that I have for this volume, is that happens several times. We'll get a plot point and it's just going to get dropped. And hence why I kind of say this feels like an experimental stage in the Hulk's history.
But don't they? I guess the only thing I'll let them off the hook of, and I'm plugging in my iPad so I don't lose my notes here. So apologize for shaking the camera and stuff. But I'm jumping ahead slightly. But don't they talk about in the next issue how these shadowy figures have been in like Marvel Team Up and other books and things like that? So like they're almost like not a Hulk villain. They're just like a guest star here because they're really attacking heroes in different ways or something like that.
So, yeah, I think if that's not the next issue, it's the following issue. And the way I read that is not so much, because I don't remember ever seeing these guys before, and I've read some of the issues that they reference. And it almost feels like they're trying to find a way to explain some unexplainable stuff that's happened in other books.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Like one of them was somebody had, I think it was like Stegron got his meat gun or something like that. And like, well, where does Stegron get the money or the ability to do that? Well, these guys did it. I could be wrong. I don't remember if that was what was actually, because I started reading these issues several weeks ago and I don't fully remember off the top of my head, but I think it was something like that.
Yeah. It'll be on the first or second page of the next issue, so we can jump ahead and start moving forward so that we're not completely out of pace with 208. But
Sure.
yeah, it's like 3 or 4 team-up issues or something like that they reference.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Real quick thoughts I had on this one. The April Summers thing, I'm willing to see where it goes, but this is another one of those. It feels like they're throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, right? And I'm not sure her chipperness is the right tone for the Hulk. And maybe that's something that could be fun to play off of, but we'll also see that chipperness is not going to last forever. One thing that I did want to kind of point out, I'm going to put the comic viewer back up. On page 182, the scene of Morris Goldstein having his newly built brick wall then destroyed by the Absorbing Man is solidifying that idea that this book is kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon, right? He's like, oh, look at that, my newly fixed wall, and then boom, immediately broken. And you get the two scenes of him just lamenting it, all right? That's not something we typically get in comics, but that's very much a Looney Tunes sort of thing.
Well, so thank you for pointing that out, because I forgot. I skipped over that in my notes because I got so distracted with the Absorbing Man stuff that, like, he needs his own comic. Like, I want to see every appearance. I want to see him as a recurring character, just like cleaning up messes. Like, what was that?
Damage control.
Damage control.
Yeah, he needs to be in damage control.
Him, like, running damage control. So yeah, he's awesome.
All right, let's start the petition. Let's get a Morris Goldstein damage control book. I have no idea.
I did look him up. They don't revisit him. There's a Marvel database that I looked him up, and I just looked up April. April's only in this volume, it looks like.
Oh, really? That's it?
They have her listed as 9 appearances, which is, probably just this volume.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I'm not surprised, honestly. But yeah, I have no idea who's in Damage Control. I've never read that. I think there's a complete collection out there that maybe I should hunt down. But all right, let's go to Incredible Hulk number 209. The Absorbing Man is out for blood, which I guess would turn him into blood, wouldn't it? All right, so Bruce decides it's time to find a new job, and while this is mostly a failure, his new cleaning neighbor sets up a job for him at a construction site. Well, while he's there, the Absorbing Man shows up because the three mysterious and powerful figures, who are referred to as they, that's air quotes that you can't hear me on the audio podcast, but they have asked for the Absorbing Man to try to kill the Hulk, and essentially they revealed that Bruce is the Hulk's secret identity, although they didn't really need to do that because his identity has been public knowledge since Epic Volume 2. Like, it comes out, everyone knows that Banner's the Hulk. Alright, anyway, the Absorbing Man attacks, bringing the Hulk out of Banner, and the Absorbing Man has the upper hand for most of the fight until he accidentally turns himself into glass. We also have a few subplots going on. Glenn Talbot and Betty Ross seem to be moving towards a divorce. Samson is caring for some drifter who's wandered into Gamma Base. And Jim Wilson, supposedly the Hulk's best friend, and this is the first time I've ever heard of Jim Wilson, so this is new to me. He is hitchhiking to get to New York so he can help the Hulk. All right, Soja, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Jim's I was not aware of this character before this volume, but like I looked him up, and he's in previous volumes and things like that. So he seems to be a surrogate for Rick Jones.
Rick Jones, yeah, that's what I thought.
Probably off doing other things.
Oh, it's Rick Jones, Quasar? No, not Quasar. Doesn't he get the Omnibands or something like that at one point? Becomes Captain Marvel?
Yeah, so
I don't know if that's happening.
I know that during the 90s,
okay,
but I'm sure he did something back in this time frame, so he might have had him back. I'm not sure. I'm not up on his history beyond that, but I did follow the Captain Marvel during the 90s and know about that.
Maybe Rick Jones is just palling around with Captain America, right? Because he does that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean these like Watcher guys are a little bit too mysterious. Like, we talked in the last issue about how like there's like at least 3 Marvel team ups that they reference here. Like I like the idea of like the Hulk in New York, so like the groundwork that they're laying here, like I'm a fan of. But having read the whole volume already, I'm just disappointed that like this is the most that we're really gonna get with it. Like there'll be a little flare ups and a little bit things that we get here, but there's a part in this volume where they just like completely abandon it and then just come back to clean up after themselves for an issue or two. I really like the Absorbing Man fight. I think he's like a powerful villain for the Hulk. And I think it's ironic that his own stupidity is like what does him in, and you think of the Hulk as sort of like the dumb brute, when in reality, this guy's a little bit dumber. Did you see the Ang Lee Hulk movie like in the early 2000s? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I saw it, but it's been a long time. I honestly don't remember the Absorbing Man being a part of that, but it's been so long since I've seen it, I don't really remember it.
So he's not in it as like a villain. He's well, he is, I guess, in a way, but they like merge the Absorbing Man with Hulk's dad.
Oh.
So like Hulk's dad basically gets the Absorbing Man's powers, but like you never see him like fight the Hulk like this per se. You get like a little bit. The Ang Lee Hulk movie is such a weird movie, in that it. Hold on, honey. In that it does a lot of experimental like comic book stuff with like panel transitions and things like that. And then like the Hulk is pretty strong, like from like the look and feel and all that. But then like they like at the ending it almost feels like a stage play. You get like them just like in the dark, like talking to each other and like screaming, yelling, and then the dad ends up with these Absorbing Man powers and kind of turns into a cloud, and the Hulk has to fight like a storm. Like it's like really weird. But yeah, like if you watch that movie, like he's basically has the Absorbing Man's powers. Like he absorbs other things, like he turns into metal or things like that at different points in time. But it's the Hulk fighting a rainstorm, which is the Absorbing Man at the very end, which is also his dad. So it gets like pretty wacky in that movie. So so I look, I enjoyed this issue, Sal's art. I just don't care about these mysterious figures, but give me an Absorbing Man Hulk fight and I'm on board.
Yep. Okay. Do you need to go off screen for a minute to help your Bamf?
I'm just gonna go on mute. Go ahead.
Okay. I do really like the Absorbing Man as a villain. He is crazily overpowered, and naturally the best way to defeat him is to use his own powers against him. So I like seeing how clever characters can do that. And I think we even get a hint of that when we first see the Absorbing Man. Like, he's imprisoned in a cardboard box, right? Which is perfect. Of course, he can't beat his way out of a cardboard box. If he touches it, he's too weak to do anything. In this case, though, it's clearly an accident, right? The Hulk couldn't think his way out of this. So I thought it was an interesting twist compared to how we see the Absorbing Man in the Thor comics, because he's typically fighting Thor. But at the same time, the victory didn't feel earned, right? The Hulk didn't really do anything. It was just pure luck he grabbed a piece of glass. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Shall we move on to 212? Or 212, 210, excuse me. Okay, this one is called...
Yeah, no one jumped that far ahead.
Yeah. This one's called And Call the Doctor Druid. Ernie Chan takes over on embellishing, and my first thought when I turned to the next page after the cover was, whoa, those are some thick lines, all right, compared to what we've been seeing before. Okay, so after his previous battle with the Absorbing Man, the Hulk reverts to Dr. Banner, and another doctor, Dr. Druid, finds Banner in an alleyway. Well, Dr. Druid was searching for the Hulk to aid him in a battle against Mahayogi, whom we get a convoluted backstory that connects Mahayogi with the Bloodstones and the magician Merlin that Thor once fought, so it sure feels between the three Watcher guys who are explaining how they've affected other parts of the Marvel Universe in this. It feels like maybe the word has gotten out that we need to connect the Hulk more to the Marvel Universe, and maybe that's why he's in New York. I get that impression, but, I don't know. Alright, so Banner agrees to help, but not to help as the Hulk. He's going to help his Banner. But of course, naturally, once they infiltrate the Yogi's compound, the heat of the battle sees Banner turn into the Hulk, after which both Magic Men try to manipulate the Hulk, leading to him becoming unconscious. Alright, Soji, your thoughts on this one?
I'm not sure why we need Doctor Druid if we have Doctor Strange. Like, it's not to say that like both can't exist in the Marvel Universe, but like if we're gonna have a guest star for the Hulk, why is it got to be another magician that's kind of very similar to Doctor Strange?
Would you rather
not really
Brother
sure.
Voodoo?
I mean,
Another Magic Man?
yeah, I just like. There's plenty of other characters that could have guest starred here. Like, I'm not sure. Obviously, they would have to tell a different story. Ernie Chan's art, I like. This is what I referenced earlier when I said, like if you layer somebody else on top of Sal, sometimes it can look very different. I think it does look very different. He's going to stick around for a while here throughout this. In fact, I think they knew that was going to happen because they list him as the embellisher, and they say, "Face it, Pilgrim, you ain't seen nothing yet." So they're making a splash of him, him being introduced here and kind of sticking around. Do I like Sal by himself better? Yes. Do I dislike this in any way? Do I feel disappointed in this in any way? No, because I feel like some of this darker line art, some of the scratchiness does differentiate from Sal, but still we're still in that world, right? Still kind of get the same Sal-esque art. The separation of Betty and Talbot, it's funny, I can't get the scene of Talbot admiring Doc Samson out of my head. Like, I feel like we're going to check in on Talbot, and the way he finds himself is he's going to be on a beach and with like a half-cut shirt dancing with a bunch of dudes. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Completely, you do you, General. But it's just the way they have this set up. I love the small panels on the last page. We talked about like Sal doing these sort of small panel transitions for the transformation of the Hulk, but they have this sort of like the Mahayogi and Dr. Druid and Hulk kind of going I don't know what they're doing. There's some sort of like mind control.
Yeah, they're going back and forth to control him. Right.
Yeah, and I think that looks really cool. I just don't care about like this type of magic, right? This whole I don't does this have a name? Like this feels very 70s though, where it's like, they do a good job of differentiating between Doctor Strange and Doctor Druid. Like Doctor Strange is, I'm going to say magic words that are in a book. Dr. Druid is like the walk on hot coal. Like he's almost like a charlatan type of thing,
Hmm.
but he's not a charlatan. Like I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like if does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's the wise man on the mountain kind of magic rather than the mystic black arts where you're hidden away in your in your sanctum sanctorum, right?
Yeah.
But I can't think of a particular name for that. It's general new agey.
Yeah, yeah, and like it's like these like you could picture people like Dr. Druid existing in real life. Like Doctor Strange is like a completely fictitious superhero magical character. If you went back to the 70s, other than the costume, there are people that would have spoken, acted like Dr. Druid. Now that I like they would have been charlatans and things like that, but like even like the walking on hot coals, like they did that on The Office. Like that's like a whole like a thing that, mind over matter, mind over your body type of mentality here. But anyway, what do you think of the issue?
Yeah, it was good. I was not kidding about the inking thing. I like Ernie Chan's inking. But it was a noticeable difference from what we got with Joe Stanton inking over Sal's art, as you had already mentioned, Stojer. And it was easy enough to adapt to, and I enjoyed Ernie Chan through most of the rest of this book. He doesn't stay on for the entirety of it, but he's on for a good chunk here. I thought the continuity cleanup that we got with Mahayogi was kind of interesting. He brings in the Bloodstones, right? Well, we've seen the Bloodstones recently as part of our read-through of the X-Men, and we know the Bloodstones were involved with Dracula, and so now I'm starting to guess that, or not guess, but I feel like I'm realizing that the Bloodstones were the MacGuffin that 70s Marvel used for, an excuse for doing whatever kind of story they wanted to, particularly in the mystical realm, right? In a way, I felt like, well, maybe the Bloodstones are like the Infinity Stones of the 90s, right? It's something that gives people an excuse to go and find and do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting, and again, fits back into that idea that maybe an initiative was put forward to try to get the Hulk more entwined with the Marvel Universe than it had been previously. Otherwise, I've got one other thing that I thought was really neat. Let's see, the knight that is jousting on a motorcycle. It's so silly, but I like it. All right, as a medievalist, I thought this is just kind of fun. It's the modern day version of a knight jousting. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Hey, so the Bloodstones, they're not. I'm trying to remember the X-Men connection. So those are. Did that show up in the Dracula issues, or that like because that's different from the Soul Stones, or is that the same thing?
The Bloodstones were Ileana when she was in limbo, and the demon guy Belasco, I think, or whatever his name
Yeah.
is. He
Okay.
said that
That's what I
she's.
thought you were talking about. I for some reason I don't, and I have to read New Mutants still, but I'm still trying to connect the like the idea of her soul and how her soul is attached to this stuff. And I'm not even sure if they cover that yet in New Mutants or if that's a future thing that I'm applying backwards looking thinking to, meaning like all the history of that I'm aware of, and applying that too soon in the chronological history there. But anyway, yeah, for some reason I thought those were like soul stones and they were parts of her soul, but you're probably right. Those are bloodstones.
Yeah. All right, let's move to Incredible Hulk number 211, The Monster and the Mystic. All right, so without the Hulk's aid, Dr. Druid is easily defeated by the Mahayogi and his toady named Mongu. Good name for a lackey. All right, so the two are imprisoned, but Dr. Druid is able to use his powers to turn the Hulk back into Bruce Banner, which means Bruce can easily slip out of the shackles that the Hulk was imprisoned in. Well, the two are eventually caught by Mongu again, and Banner is forced to fight Mongu in a gladiatorial arena, like we haven't seen that before. When Banner naturally turns into the Hulk again, Dr. Druid causes the Yogi to drop the Bloodstone, which the Hulk destroys, and this magical stone is what had kept the Yogi alive throughout the centuries, because we were told that he was once Merlin who fought others, but like the Merlin of the past or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, the Yogi dies in Mongu's arms once the Bloodstone is destroyed because he's that old. All right, and we get a subplot roundup. Both Glenn Talbot and Betty Ross leave Gamma Base, but separately to find themselves. Jim Wilson is getting closer to New York, but the trucker who dropped him off in New York seems to be in contact with the Constrictor, which at this point we don't know who the Constrictor is. All right, Soja, your thoughts?
And this issue was fine. Like I kind of realized like that this Mongol guy reminds me of what's the guy's name? Like it's the uh, I'm blanking on. It's like Dark Side Sun in the DC universe. I don't remember his name, but there's he looks just like very similar to him. Big hulking kind of villain that I think carries an axe or something similar to this. Um, so I wonder if like there's some inspiration pulled from there, because that would have been a New God character that Kirby would have done, and maybe even around the same time. I'm not really sure chronologically. So it reminds me of that. Also reminds me a little bit of the Silver Surfer villain. There was that Herald. I'm blanking on all the names right now, but there was a Herald that carried an axe and things like that.
Oh,
He
yeah,
showed,
the big guy. I don't know his name.
yeah. So he's
Terrax the Destroyer?
yeah,
No.
yeah. Kind of reminds me. Well, maybe it's not Terex. There might be somebody else in there that Terex fights. But anyway, reminds me of like a Silver Surfer villain, one of those like Herald characters.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this issue is just okay. Like nothing spectacular for me.
Uh, yeah, I agree. This is fine. It's somewhat predictable. Honestly, I'm more interested in the growth of Betty Ross becoming her own person than this whole fight Magic Man to save the world story that the Hulk is going through. Okay, yeah, who's that?
This guy
Korg.
Morg.
Morg.
Morg? Is it Korg? No,
I
no, it's Morg with an M.
I just couldn't see it
Um,
through the screen.
yeah, yeah. So it's more. I think they like make him. I think like Galactus pluses him up, and yeah. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it just reminded me of a Silver Surfer villain.
Almost feel
Anyway,
that's
go ahead.
also a trope in some ways of just having the big dumb guy with a sword or an axe or something be the second in command to the smart magic user. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's something that we get in Conan all the time, right? But yeah,
Hmm.
I feel like the subplots in this one were actually a little more interesting. Again, I'm curious about Jim Wilson. Although him coming in with the trucker, it clicked a memory in my mind. The mid '70s, I think, were obsessed with CB radios and truckers, and we kind of get some of that here. Of course, 1975 brought us C.W. McCall's Convoy song, which hit the charts. And this issue of the Hulk just so happens to be published in the same month and year as the film Smokey and the Bandit came out. So I feel like the whole trucker thing was very much in the mindset of the '70s, and we just get that here.
Hey, did you ever use a CB radio?
I have my father. I don't know why he decided to do this, but we had my father's made some odd decisions in his life. I love him to death, don't get me wrong, but when I was younger, I remember he managed to buy a Jaguar, a used Jaguar. It was like an XK6 or something. I don't even remember. And we would always use that to go on long distance drives to see family out in Tennessee. And one year he decided to get a CB radio that he put in the glove box, and we were constantly chatting with truckers as we would go down I-40. So, and again, maybe it's because he lived through the '70s. Maybe he had some lingering, desires to get on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
But yeah, have
Yeah,
you?
I had yeah, so my experience is so in 98 when I graduated high school, we my wife and I, was my girlfriend at the time, and some other friends, we went down to Disney World. All right, so I hadn't been to Disney World since I was probably a baby or something like that. So we decided to go down there. Well, my family decided that like, well, we can't have the high school or the now college kid go in the Disney World and not have the younger brother and sister go. So they were like, well, we're going to go to Disney World at the same time. But now we didn't fly; we drove down from Pennsylvania down to Florida. Well, I happened to be in the mall and I went into Radio Shack, showing like all the time, how old I am here.
Yep.
So in Radio Shack on clearance was two CB radios for like, I don't know, like $30 or something like that for both of them. It was like some cheap price where I just picked them up. And what it was a magnetic antenna and all the cords so you could plug into your cigarette lighter. And this was before cell phones, right? Like, I mean, cell phones existed, obviously. You had them back in the Saved by the Bell days, but they were expensive, right? So this was a way for us to like drive near each other and have the and be able to talk on the CB radio and stay in constant communication during the 20-hour plus ride down to Florida and back, obviously. So yeah, had a CB radio. I don't think I used it other than that trip, but it was it was real cheap.
Yep. That was definitely a thing, and yeah, cell phones. I guess you don't really need that anymore. I don't know if truckers still use CB radios or if it is just cell phones now.
I mean, I gotta imagine they have something like the CB radio because like the cell phones, like you wouldn't know who to call. Like it's
Yeah,
almost like
that's
a
true.
group chat, right?
Yeah,
So like you're talking to the people that are near you. So
and I guess
they're
there
probably more advanced now.
there are those things. I don't know what they're called, but they will send voice messages. Like if you go by a way station, you've seen those. They have the little receiver things, and I think they actually
Mhm.
send messages to the radio in your car, which might be a trucker CB radio thing, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. All right, let's move on to number 212, Crushed by the Constrictor. All right, so Jim Wilson. Stoger, is Jim Wilson meant to be a child?
I can't tell. No, I don't think he is, the way he's drawn at times, you can't tell how old he is, and his haircut changes in some of these issues too. So it throws me off. Not yet, but later on, there's an issue where it does.
Okay, yeah, I just been noticing is, and I still don't have a good answer to this as I've read through this volume, because he seems short, and I feel like some people refer to him as being a boy, but that might also be a racial thing, unfortunately. But he looks like he could be a boy, except his facial features look like he's older, like he's a man, and I don't know. Okay, so anyway, Jim Wilson has made it to New York. He's looking for the Hulk, but he's being pursued by thugs who work for a guy named the Constrictor. Now, this is a Marvel baddie with adamantium coils at the end of his wrists that act like whips, and this is his first appearance. Well, Wilson eventually gets a call through to Bruce Banner by having the phone operator search for different Bruce Banners, but once they begin talking, the line is cut and Jim disappears. Well, Bruce is happy to go investigate and avoid his now suddenly inquisitive apartment manager, April Summers. Well, when Bruce finds Jim, he is being kidnapped by the Constrictor, and Bruce turns into the Hulk, faces a challenge from the Constrictor's coils, which can choke him, but he manages to get the Constrictor to electrocute himself. All right, Stoji, your thoughts here.
So I was researching Jim Wilson as you were talking there, and it looks like he's supposed to be about 15 when he's first introduced. So that was about Hulk 130. So he's been around Hulk for a while. So,
He'd still be a
maybe he's supposed to
teenager, I
be
would think.
15, 17. Yeah, I mean, maybe just a adult, just adult at like 18, but like still young. He's also the character that you see much later in the Hulk comics. I'm trying to think about how to word this without spoiling it. But there's a very famous Hulk comic in Peter David's run where there's a character that develops something, and it was unique for that time.
I am not
I'm
going
trying
to
to draw.
know.
Um,
Others might pick up on that hint. I'm not going to know.
yeah, so I didn't make the connection that that was the same character. That there's a cover to the book. I'm stalling because I'm trying to find the cover because you might recognize the cover, and I don't think the cover necessarily spoils anything. But I'm not able to find it because I don't remember exactly what issue it's in.
Okay.
Anyway, um, But yeah, so I didn't realize that that's the same Jim Wilson. So I do know him a little bit, or slightly from later on in the books. The Constrictor I think is a pretty interesting and cool villain. Like I like him. He's still around to this day. He's currently in some Wolverine comics that came out recently. Do they say that he has adamantium
I think they
coils
do
yet?
in. I think they did in this issue, but I mean,
Okay.
it definitely in the recent Wolverine one. That's the whole reason why he's there is because of
Yeah.
adamantium
Yeah.
whips.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like um the whole like there's a lot of different like subplots in this issue too that I'm trying to wrap my head around which ones I should care about, so to speak. So like the whole like Betty becoming a whole new person and getting, I guess, putting a wig on or having long hair or dyeing her hair or something is it, okay. And then you get this like scientist that's working with Shield. I'm not sure if we're supposed to know who that scientist is or if he's just a new character there. So that's all interesting. But like, yeah, I think the battle with the Constrictor just works for me. I like that guy as a villain. So
Yeah, I agree. I like the Constrictor as a villain. I've never really known much about his motivations, but I like his design. I think that's very strong. I think this is the only issue we get with him in this volume. I think this is another one of those plot points that just gets dropped in this volume. So, um,
yeah, I think he's. I think this is his introduction, though.
yep,
If I'm trying to remember if I wrote that down. Like, so he's not a guest star. Like, this is the very first appearance of him.
yes, yep, this is his very first appearance. So, when he comes back again, I don't know if it's that going to be in the Hulk or if that's going to be in some other book. I have no idea. But yep, this is his first time. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say on this one because this we find out this just eventually goes nowhere. All right, should we go to the next one, issue 213?
Let's do it.
All right, you just don't quarrel with the Quintronic Man. Tom Palmer now joins as guest embellisher. All right, so the Hulk is minding his own business when the police start firing on him. Well, naturally defends himself, but the police have a new weapon, the Quintronic Man. This is a robot which features 5 operators for different limbs in a bizarrely impractical setup. Well, the robot holds its own against the Hulk and even manages to neutralize him using a sleeping gas. And as the officers drive away from the Hulk, Jim manages to crash the truck, allowing the Hulk to escape and for the Quintronic Man to collapse. Meanwhile, news of the battle is broadcast on TV, and April Summers just misses the part where the news reveals that the Hulk is Bruce Banner, and therefore her tenant is Bruce Banner. And then Jack of Hearts decides to show up to try to tackle the Hulk and to help him break into the superhero biz. All right, your thoughts here?
I mean, Jack of Hearts is just the silliest villain or silliest hero, I guess. Um, by the way, I finally found the cover. I don't know if you ever remember this issue.
Kind of remember
Yeah,
seeing that cover, but yeah, I
it was
don't
like
really.
a big deal when it came out in the '90s for what happens there. But anyway, Jim Wilson's in that book. So that's why I was slightly distracted as I was flipping through the Hulk shelf there. Yeah, I look. This is the dumbest villain in the world. This like 5 people in a body thing. It's completely idiotic. It makes no sense. Other than the fact that it's kind of cool to look at, I guess, maybe, and they have an excuse to use this word quintronic. Um, you
You know
know,
they're trying to go for Bionic Man, right? But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, the idea of like maybe like some sort of you know uh, pentagon man or so, like they went with the different word that means 5. So but Jack of Hearts, like, never a big fan of his, like over the course of history, like, he he's on the Avengers a lot. So he seems like he's fairly new here. They talk about some of his introductions, but also not necessarily talking about them like they just happened. Like, so, he might be bouncing around the Marvel universe, but he'll be an Avenger. He's in the tail end of he'll be in the Epic collections at the end of right before the modern epics. So he has some parts to play. Like I have it collected in the Johns and Coppel omnibus. So right before the Bendis era, and then Bendis like kills him off. And he comes back, so it's not really a spoiler. But like when Wanda goes crazy and you have Avengers disassembled, one of the things she has is her blow up Jack of Hearts and blow up part of the mansion. So
Yeah, wasn't
that's my
yeah,
what's that?
his death and exploding powers is what leads to Avengers Disassembled, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So I mean, she does a bunch of things, right? She, kills Hawkeye, dismantles the Vision, drives She-Hulk crazy, and blows up Jack of Hearts, and he stays dead for a little while, and then eventually comes back. I think he's teaming up with She-Hulk more recently. I think they were dating for a while, and now they're in the same comic together. So yeah, he's long lasting in the Marvel universe, but even though I know all of that about him, that doesn't, that was me talking for a while, but that's not really that much to know about him. I don't really care about him. So, so this issue's fine. I'm much more interested in like Jim interacting with the Hulk. The last thing I'll mention is like we get a cameo on page 271 of Meathead from Archie from All in the Family. And he just recently passed away right around the holidays. He was murdered. So you get on page 271.
Okay. Here, I'm trying to pull it up on the comic viewer. Here, I'll actually get that on the screen so people can see what I'm looking at here. Let's see. So this one
right there
at the bottom
left.
That
The
guy
inner
right there?
side. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, wait, I'll tell Archie about this.
I was wondering what was going on there because I thought they're surely making some
Yeah.
reference that I just don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, he was on. He played Meathead on All in the Family. So he's talking about Archie, and I mean, he's drawn to look exactly like him at that time. So
Okay, fun little Easter egg. Yeah, there's. Whoops, there we go. There's really not anything to this issue, right? I agree the Quintronic Man is stupid, but you know what? It is so stupid that I actually love it. It's such a weird concept in design. But fine for just like a one and done. We don't need to see the Quintronic Man again. Otherwise, there's no substance here. It's setting up the appearance of Jack of Hearts in the next issue, which I'm kind of with you, Stojr. I'm familiar with him. I know about him, but I don't really know anything about him. I've seen him before, but that's about it. All right, so let's get into that issue. This is incredible. Oop,
yeah, I'll just make one comment.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh no, don't tell me. We finally done it. We broke it. We broke the internet. Oh, shoot.
I'm calling him Meathead multiple times, but I should probably call him by his real name.
Okay, it's caught up. Are you the soldier? Or are we still...
We back? We're back.
Yeah, I know. I think that one... it's still going slow.
I think I have the audio back. The
Okay.
video's catching up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Broke. Okay, the audio is working. I think the video might be back. Stojr, can you move for me a little bit? Okay, yeah, I think we're back, but the
Testing.
the live feed has definitely stopped. So I don't. I think
We'll
that's
give that a second to catch up.
Yeah. That might be the end of the comic viewer. Or I'm plugged directly into the internet, so if my wife woke up and started using the internet, that shouldn't have affected things because I should be plugged directly in. So I don't know what happened. My computer's starting to calm down. I think we're okay now.
Okay. Well, what I was trying to say, and I don't know if you heard, is that I called him Meathead like 5 times, but didn't use his real name. So he deserves the respect of me saying, like, rest in peace, Rob Reiner.
Okay, that's yeah. I knew about Rob Reiner's death, but I didn't realize he played. I'm not familiar with the character Meathead, so.
Oh yeah. So he probably had a name on the show. Archie called him Meathead. So but yeah, that was his whatever his name was on the show. I don't remember that, but
Gotcha. All right, well, let's tackle Incredible Hulk 214. Now that it's the breaking of our stream seems to have fixed itself. Although I don't know, the stream might be officially dead now. I'm not sure.
No, it did what we saw, so it's just now starting to move around where I can see your face moving and stuff like that. I don't know what the audio is like because I'm listening to you, but
Right. Yeah. Okay, so Incredible Hulk 214, Jack of Hearts is wild. Ernie Chan returns to join as joint illustrator with Sal. After his tussle with the Quintronic Man, the Hulk reverts back to Banner, and Banner takes Jim Wilson back to his apartment. There they find that the previous occupant, the magician Kropotkin the Great, has tried to reclaim his abode. The ensuing argument sees Banner jump out a window and turn into the Hulk again, just as Jack of Hearts was trying to track him down. Well, naturally, we get a big fight, and Jack of Hearts attempts to lure the Hulk away from innocent civilians, sees their fight end on a burning freighter at the docks, and a freighter which then explodes as the fire spreads. All right, your thoughts?
I don't. Why do we need Fat Doctor Strange? Like, how many different magicians are we going to traipse through this book? I don't understand. I don't understand. I think the idea. Well, first, I think he's there for some comic relief or something like that, but I don't know if it's really necessary. Um, the idea of Jack of Hearts fighting him in the city. Like, I like the concept of like he's got to try and protect this secret identity, so he's got to get away from the house, and now he's at the docks. But New York's not like set on the ocean. Like, how big is this freighter that catches fire and explodes? I guess some of the harbor is pretty large, but it seems a little ridiculous. So it's fine. It wraps up the story, but it kind of just shows once again that like the real villain in these books is the guest star, right? Like the Hulk's not doing anything wrong. Everybody else is doing things to him, causing him to Hulk out and get all pissed off. So what'd you think?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. I felt like it was kind of classic Hulk of being just a big dumb beat 'em up. I'm impressed with some of the details in the art in this one. Jack of Hearts' costume in particular is very intricate, so it's nice to see them doing that. And we got some hints of Jack of Hearts' origins in this one, that he originally is from Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And like I've said before, I don't really know anything about his origins or his powers or anything like that, so I decided to look it up. It appears Jack of Hearts is actually the child of a human and an alien, and as was hinted in this issue, he was doused in a zero fluid fuel, which gives him incredible powers which he can't really control. So these are things like concussive blast, flight, increased intelligence, and increased endurance. He created the suit of the Jack of Hearts suit to try to contain his powers. But of course, as we know, they eventually get the better of him, and we already talked about his explosion before Avengers disassembled. So that was kind of what I could learn about his background. It seems like a fine enough background, but not for a character never really took off to become a major part of the Marvel Universe, as far as I can tell.
And his the storyline with him before he explodes in Avengers Disassembled is somewhat interesting, in that like they have to bleed off the power that he has so he doesn't explode. So he has to start spending like a bunch of time in like a chamber to kind of like, tone down the power or Omni, but that's kind of the idea of him at that time, is that, he can't fully control his power. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Havoc in that way.
Mm. All right, let's go to 215. This is Home is Where the Hurt Is. All right, so the Hulk pulls himself out of the water from his battle in the previous issue, and Jim Wilson escorts him home, where he once again reverts to Bruce Banner. But in the last few issues, we've had a mysterious brewing on a shield helicarrier. A mysterious capsule, which is irradiated with gamma radiation, was found in the sea. So S.H.I.E.L.D. called upon General Ross and Quartermain Clay of Gamma Base to see if they could help explain it. Well, the capsule turns out to hold an android clone of the Bi-Beast, and he has taken over the helicarrier. Well, Ross and friends then launch a plan to essentially beam Bruce Banner up to the helicarrier, and when he naturally turns into the Hulk, well, General Ross taunts him on a chase through the S.H.I.E.L.D. ship, and he gets the Hulk to confront the Bi-Beast. All right, Stojr, your thoughts here.
All right, so let's talk about what's dumb in this issue. By Beast is dumb.
Oh, I love the By
The,
Beast. He is dumb, but I
the
love that
name is
design.
dumb. I mean, look, I have no problem with what your personal life is, Mr. Beast, but but the name is dumb. The design is a little silly. It almost reminds me of like an Invincible villain that I've seen, and I wonder if they took inspiration from things like this with some of the Invincible villains. Do you collect any of the Invincible comics? Have you read
No,
any of that or?
it's one of those. I have it in the back of my mind that I'm gonna have to go buy the compendiums or something at some point and read that. But I've got
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff that I want to hit before I get to that.
My son likes the show, and the only comic he owns is he ended up we got him one for Christmas, and he bought the other two. There's three compendiums for the whole series, but there's some hulking looking characters that are like brothers or clones of each other, I think, in there. So the it's different than this, but like it feels similar. Like they're scientific, like this guy is, but they're also a big hulking brute type thing. The twist with them is more of like, well, which one's the original, which one's the clone type of mindset and things of that nature. You could kill them, and as long as one of them's still alive or they have a clone going, they always come back. So, anyway, the other thing that I think is dumb is the yellow shield officer uniforms.
Yeah,
I just hate the color palette. Like, I just think it looks stupid. So I don't mind like yellow being in it, but the yellow on yellow kind of look is stupid. I don't like it, and I want it to change. That's my fashion tip of the day. How did they know where the Hulk was in New York to beam him up? Like, did they just know he was in the city the whole time and not care? Like, were there some sort of tracking mechanism? Like, they just like instantly knew where he was, and pulled him over here. But anyway, I think Hulk coming out of the water looks awesome. I think him messing with the mobsters for a couple seconds is fun. I get a lot more, like, I get a little bit less Ernie on some of these pages and a little bit more Sal on some of these pages than maybe like in the Dr. Druid issues. So kind of feel, like the style, you can almost tell where like maybe somebody was like, if Sal was giving a more complete picture on something where he was able to spend a little bit more time, Ernie backed off a little bit, and if Sal did more of like pencils or layouts, and then Ernie maybe did a lot more fill in, and you could tell where those things happen. um and then I think it's smart the way that they, manipulated the Hulk to kind of, go through the helicarrier throughout this. So I think it's a fun little story. But there's just a lot of like weird, convenient things, like the trapdoor slide thing is just, like,
oh yeah, it's
why is that
convenient.
there?
Yeah.
Like who built that? Like, so anyway, what'd you think?
It's back to my point of this is a Saturday morning cartoon, right? This is silliness.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this one. I did like the humor at the start where the Hulk just kind of nonchalantly throws a gangster into the ocean. That was fun. I mentioned before, I love the design of the By Beast. It is stupid, and that's what I like about it. This is not his first appearance, but that happens in the Sixth Epic collection. But I love what a weird concept of he is, where he has this giant hulking creature that has two heads, but they're stacked on top of one another. They're not next to one another like what you would think. It's just so weird, and I appreciate that. I never knew much about the By Beast, but the origin story we get about him being from some ancient cloudland, it kind of sounded familiar to me, so I don't know if I picked that up somewhere else. I just like the look of him. So,
I feel like we talked about that Cloudland before. Maybe I saw something online. Because that's like there's like angel, like, was maybe tied to it. There's like a bird population there.
oh, maybe that's why it was sounding familiar. If we stumbled upon that
Yeah.
in something else, I don't know though.
Yeah, I feel like we hit it from some other angle. I just can't remember exactly where. Or maybe I saw something online. There's a guy I follow on TikTok that wrote for the history of the Marvel universe, or is it that, or is it the Marvel handbook, or one of them, or both.
Hmm.
And he might have had a video that explained something that talked about that sort of bird world that was there. But anyway, yeah, that sort of floating bird
thing like seemed familiar to me. So
Yeah. All right, let's move on to issue 216. All right, this is Countdown to Catastrophe, and this is basically one giant fight issue. The Hulk and Bi-Beast battle it out in the helicarrier, with the helicarrier losing power and threatening to crash to the Earth. Well, Thunderbolt Ross, Clay Quartermain, and the Gaffer, the scientist guy, they manage to get the propellers working again, but the resulting jolt of the helicarrier starting again launches both the Hulk and the Bi-Beast off the ship. All right, Stojr, thoughts?
So, what's the deal with the scientist? Because I didn't get a chance to kind of go back and kind of review this, but I kind of had this like thought in my head as I was like, is he supposed to be like an ex-Nazi scientist or something like that, or is he just a weirdo? Like, what's this guy's deal?
I think they're trying to port like some of the words that he uses, like boykin, is Yiddish. So I think they're trying to make him. It almost feels like a stereotype Woody Allen sort of thing is the impression I'm getting. But it definitely was not what I was expecting. It threw me off for the first couple times we saw him.
It almost made it seem like he's a character that like shows up in Shield comics. I'm supposed to know who he is, or like I don't know.
Let me
just,
look him
like
up.
The way they're doing some of this stuff. By the way, you mentioned Bi-Beast.
Oh no.
In volume 6, so I kind of had to look him up, and that's what he looked at Bi-Beast.
I cannot look things up on my computer. I killed the stream again.
I think we slowed down when you started looking something up.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. So I cannot mess with that anymore.
Are we back?
Audio wise, yeah, I think we are now. Okay.
Do not.
You are the official researcher.
Your computer is a delicate flower. Yes, that's fine. Your computer is a delicate flower, and if we touch it the wrong way, it messes up.
Yeah. I have too much going on at once. We'll have to try.
Yeah. All right. So back to this issue though. 216. The Battle of the Helicarrier reminds me a bit of the first Avengers movie, because you get Thor and the Hulk fighting on a helicarrier. So that was kind of cool. I'm curious as to why. Like, I'm starting to ask myself the question of why Thunderbolt Ross is sort of like loyal or has like this guilt towards the Hulk. Like, again, I kind of came into this epic with this thought process that like Ross hates the Hulk and he's always chasing the Hulk, but like I don't get that vibe here. Like, I get like almost like he's like, he feels bad for him, or he was like letting him live in New York because he knew where he was and he just beamed him up instantly. So like I don't really get that. And then once again, Hulk is the smartest one here. Like, he seems to always make the good decisions as you go through this. The mystery with this blonde guy is like not really interesting me, like, because I feel like they're spacing it out too much and it's taking too long. And we'll talk, I guess, when they do the reveal about what's going on with that guy. But like, I kind of like when they check in on him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. All right, I don't care. Like, he went into a room. Like, like, can we speed this a little subplot along here a little bit quicker? But anyway, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought this was a fun issue, despite my not having much to say in the summary. A lot of destruction, a lot of bashing. It's what I expect of the Hulk. To touch on the General Ross thing, it kind of sparked a little bit of a memory. In the second Hulk volume, that's where Ross learns that Bruce Banner is in fact the Hulk, and I think there's a little bit of a change then of his realization of, this is somebody I know and this is not something that's intentional, but I don't know where it went from there because I haven't read volume 3. So I don't know if it goes back to that kind of change, was that early or what? In which case, how does it then shift back? Because I think it feels like in more modern stuff, Ross goes back to being the gotta hunt the Hulk down and that sort of thing. As I was reading through this one, I started to notice the amount of detail that Ernie Chan is actually adding to Sal's art, and I appreciate that. I like Sal; he's really good. But Chan, he's grown on me. He's grown on me as an embellisher with Sal, and the two styles I think are working well together. All right, should we move to issue 217?
Let's do it,
because I think the stream is officially fixed again. So. All right, 217. Did that change? That didn't change. There we go. All right, the Circus of Lost Souls. All right, so as the Hulk washes upon the shore from his previous adventure, he stumbles upon a group of refugees from a traveling circus. Well, it turns out that they were once members of the Circus of Crime, and they are on the run because one of their members, a beautiful woman named Miriam, is being sought by the ringmaster, because Miriam is a sea nymph, and thus the ringmaster believes she is knowledgeable about hidden riches. Because why wouldn't she? Well, the Hulk is accepted within the group and finally finds some people with whom he fits in. But when the Ringmaster and the Circus of Crime find them, they discover that Miriam must return to the ocean or she will perish. All right, so your thoughts here?
The vibe I get here is that like almost like a proto Great Lakes Avengers.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a connection.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is because like the guy that the guy with like the long bones, that kind of looks like he's elastic, but he's not, right? He's just kind of big. So the only potential connection would be sort of like the hulking woman there, but I don't think there's that connection there. I don't think there's a Wolf Boy or the guy that's dressed up like a little general with the pipe in his mouth or the thing he's smoking or whatever. So I thought it was a nice little one and done issue. Like, it's interesting. Like, they're definitely interesting drawn characters, but I get the feeling like this is where I start to, this will continue over the next couple issues, but like, we just like pulled Hulk out of New York and just now we're just like throwing him into like random things. And it's like, well, wait, like we're going to start to lose like the plot of like why we care. Like I guess like there's a part of this that's like a little bit too random. Like in the Hulk volumes that I read after Peter David, I think it's like the Bruce Jones run is the way it's kind of known, that like 100 issues leading up to Planet Hulk. He's definitely like going from like town to town, kind of like the Kung Fu TV show or like the Hulk TV show. But there's like at least a thread line of like a mystery or some things he's trying to solve and stuff like that kind of connect of like why he's moving from place to place. I like the grounding in the framework of New York. And while this issue starts with at least like he was thrown from the helicarrier and this is where he landed, we start to just like meander after this. And, so this is I'm complaining a little bit for what we're going to get to next, but like, there's a bit of like, I kind of don't like that they lost the thread with that sort of framing device. And maybe that just has to do with Len's like run wrapping up. Because at some point, like Roger Stern takes over, 2 issues or so?
Well, Roger Stern will be introduced in the next issue, so we're definitely in the
so he's co-writing the next one, and then he's he's writing the one after that. So okay, so maybe that has to do with it. Maybe it's just like a transition of writing. Like Len maybe had some ideas, but he wrapped up his run, and Roger and Uncle Raj that Omar calls him is coming in. So maybe that's part of it. Anyway, this one's fine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's fine. I don't know why, but I have a soft spot for the Circus of Crime. Call it a nostalgia for an imagined past, right? I just like the quaintness of a traveling circus. And I think this group of refugees from the Circus of Crime are great too, right? They're unique. I love Major Minor, all right? It's a hilarious name and a silly concept. I just appreciate that. Not only does it speak to his stature, but it evokes ideas of music and musicality. He's dressed like a drum major, right? So I thought that was just great. Sal's art, of course, is excellent. We really see some emotions out of the Hulk and outside of just anger, of course. But I was wondering if the Hulk felt contentment with this group, right? Why didn't he revert back to Banner, right? Len Wein had already established that this is how the transformation works earlier in the volume. So I find it odd that it didn't happen here, but, it could also just be convenience. We got to keep the Hulk for right now, right?
Well, they do that. I'm trying to remember if they did in this issue or later, but there's an issue where he like falls asleep too, and he doesn't transform back into Banner.
Right? Yeah, he falls.
Like, so,
I think that might be 2 issues from now. He falls asleep and tumbles down a mountain.
Right. So like, the sort of what causes the transition one way or the other isn't always clear. Obviously, like some sort of stress or anger, will cause him to turn into the Hulk. But yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah. All right, let's go on to 218. All right, this is The Rhino Doesn't Stop Here Anymore. Co-scripted now by Len Wein and Roger Stern. Co-illustrated by George Tuska and Keith Pullard. Embellishments by Ernie Chan. Now this is interesting because we are getting into the early stages of Roger Stern's career at Marvel, not just on the Hulk. Roger Stern began as an editor at Marvel, and he did some co-plotting on Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel Presents, and a little bit on Captain America. Here in the Hulk, we see he is starting as a co-plotter, but he will eventually take over writing duties from Wein. And so the Hulk is Roger Stern's first run as a regular writer at Marvel, right? So this really is the start of his career. Now, I mean, it's not the start of his career, but start of being a regular writer, right? Okay, right. Well, this is a Doc Samson book this time. As the good doctor has left Gamma Base and is thinking about the effect that he has had on people's lives, he discovers a rail bridge which has been sabotaged just as an express train is coming by, just like we saw in Avengers #1, right? Well, Samson holds up the tracks and soon learns that the Rhino had sabotaged the tracks to acquire some package from the train. The Rhino then succeeds in derailing the train, and he gets away with the package while Samson helps the injured people. But later, Samson tracks the Rhino down to an abandoned mining town, and the two slug it out, with the Rhino eventually falling deep into a well. All right, your thoughts here, Stojr.
I mean, I like this issue. I like that we get a little break from the Hulk. I think, we get to see what Doc Samson can do and how he takes down an enemy. I feel like the Rhino is out of character, and maybe that's just my perception of the Rhino. Maybe back in the 60s and 70s, this is how he acted, but he's acting like a mercenary here. And I always thought of him more of like a victim, or at least, I don't know. Like he just seems to have like indiscriminately doesn't care about like the people in the train or anything like that. Just feels a little off. But I would have to go back and reread early Amazing Spider-Man to remember if this is truly out of character or if this is the way he was back then. Doc Samson has a little drop of Immortal Hulk as a name because they don't know if he's alive or dead. Which is interesting because there's an Immortal Hulk run that happens much later.
Oh no, what's happened now?
And so I found that.
I didn't even touch anything this time.
That interesting. I wonder if they, pull. Sometimes a little there. Can you hear me?
I don't know what's happened this time. I didn't even touch anything. All right, I think you're back, Stojr. Can you hear me?
Did your computer CPU spike that time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it did. And I don't know why. I didn't touch anything. So here, I'm gonna close.
We're gonna have to have a Patreon to get like a supercomputer for one of us.
With the cost of RAM these days, it's gonna have to be one heck of a Patreon. Sorry, Stojr.
Yeah.
You were
all right. Am I back?
Yeah, you were back. The last I recall, you were talking about having to check early issues of Amazing Spider-Man to see about the Rhino's gimmicks, his origins, his caricaturization.
Gotcha. So what I was, we had a little name drop of Immortal Hulk in here, which is interesting because eventually there's an Immortal Hulk comic, and sometimes these throwaway lines do inspire, things later on. And I know that they went back and looked at some of the history, I'm sure, because the concept of Immortal Hulk plays into him not being able to die, obviously the title. So they go back to a lot of the times where, he might have been close to that and probably went through the history there. So I like the issue. I thought the one page of Hulk guest starring in his own book was kind of funny and getting tangled up in the fishing lines. But other than that, happy with a little side quest here with Doc Samson. What about you?
Yeah. I can't say I cared much for this issue. I'm with you that the Rhino's characterization does seem rather weird. Such as he had enough stamina to run after a train, which his gimmick from his first appearance in Spider-Man was that he was very powerful, but he lacked the stamina to fight on, right? The Spider-Man basically just made him super tired. And I'm curious about the Rhino's history as a Hulk villain because he's painted here as if he has some psychotic obsession with being better than the Hulk. And I guess it makes sense that Marvel would pit these two against one another at some point because they're both big and powerful. But it's still it still seems weird. It kind of reminds me, and I'm thinking of this off the top of my head, it's kind of like the Sandman. He seems very different when he's a member of the Frightful Four and is fighting the Fantastic Four versus when he's a Spider-Man villain, right? So maybe we're getting something similar with the Rhino here. And the scales on his costume is kind of weird. It looks like he has a bad case of full body acne, and maybe that's from being stuck inside that Rhino suit for so long, but all right, I do have a no prize for this one.
All right, let's say it.
All right, the Suspension of Disbelief Award goes to the splash page from this issue. Okay, we know we have to suspend our disbelief for comics, right? But the newspaper picture of the Hulk falling out of the sky with the caption that reads, "Candid shot of the Hulk taken from a passing 747. Frankly, I find hilarious. All right, we are to believe that some poor traveler just so happened to have their camera pointing out the window of a 747, and the Hulk just so happened to drop by the plane so closely that he could get that photo. That is unreal." But it's a convenient way to get us into the story.
Yep.
All right, let's push ahead before the stream breaks again. All right, Incredible Hulk 219, No Man is an Island. Wen and Stern stay on as co-writers, and Sal Buscema and Ernie Chan return as co-artists and storytellers. All right, so the Hulk laments his recent loss of the sea nymph Miriam, but eventually falls asleep after his temper tantrum, and when he does, he reverts back to Bruce Banner. It appears that he somehow ended up in the Netherlands, and so he finds passage, or maybe he wasn't the Netherlands, but his boat was called the Rotterdam or something like that. Anyway, he finds passage on a freighter boat that takes him back to the United States. But the freighter was attacked by Captain Barracuda, a Namor villain who hasn't made an appearance since Namor number 11 back in 1969, so it's been nearly 10 years. Barracuda's refusal to take prisoners sees Banner turn into the Hulk and fall overboard in the fight. And this is where it gets weird. The Hulk washes up on a tropical island where he meets Robinson Crusoe, the fictional castaway from the Daniel Defoe novel of 1719. Well, Crusoe mistakes the Hulk for his man Friday, and for some reason he makes that mistake, and he shares with him a mysterious machine which is in his possession. But then the two castaways are attacked by both Men-Beasts and then a returned Captain Barracuda. I was about to ask Stojr what the heck is going on, but that is also the first comment you have in your notes.
Yeah, I think there was another error in my printing where they slipped LSD into this issue or something. Like I'm all over the place. You got me all right? Stream working?
Yeah, the stream is working. I just had to cough, although it's going a little slow.
So yeah, I'm scratching my head. Like, are we done with New York now? Like we're just, this is what we're doing. The Captain Barracuda seems like completely ridiculous. I'm wondering why he's got like the Death's Head logo on his chest. That like Marvel UK villain. Like that's kind of what it looks like to me. Maybe I'm inferring too much there. The sort of lack of any sort of like framing device is starting to show on these issues, right? Like the idea here that like we're just kind of completely randomly stumbling into things is starting to show, and I'm not necessarily a fan of. It's interesting too. Like the Hulk falls asleep and doesn't transform to Banner. but he falls and then transforms to Banner because he fell, which seems like the opposite of what should happen, because if he's falling off the mountain, he probably needs to be Hulk so he doesn't die. So that was a little weird or backwards to me. The Barracuda ship looks kind of cool though. Like, I'll give him that. Like, and stylish. But yeah, like we get it to like the Robinson Crusoe and the Man Apes, and I'm just like, what the hell is happening right now? What about you?
Yeah, God, it seemed normal enough, but then the appearance of Robinson Crusoe seems to just come out of nowhere, which so strange. We get quasi an explanation in the next issue, but it seems like they're trying to cover their butts. They're trying to cover their tracks. Now, Len does reference Crusoe's appearance in Marvel Classics Comics number 19. I did a little research on this. Marvel Classic Comics retold classic literature as comic books, and it was meant to be a replacement of Classics Illustrated, which stopped printing in 1971. And Ernie Chan, our inker, actually did the art for most of the covers of the early issues of this line. And if you're really interested, there is a Marvel Classic Series omnibus that contains issues number 13 through 36. And the reason why it starts at number 13 is because issues 1 through 12 were colorized reprints of Pendulum Now Age comics, which were originally published by a different company. And Stojr, I got curious, and I picked up a copy. I found a copy. It's being mailed to me. So I like it when Marvel does weird things. I knew about this line, but I never thought to actually look to see if they collected it, and they have. So I've got a copy of that coming to me.
Nice.
All right, I have a no prize for this one.
All right.
This is a serious one, the Way to Go Sal Award, which must be awarded to Sal Buscema because it has his name in it. But he's earned it this time for this particular 5-panel depiction of Banner turning into the Hulk. We've already talked about how he does this a lot in this volume, but this one, showing the small progression between the stages of transformation, I thought it was just really cool, and then having the multiple panels build the tension for that inevitable change, it's just so good. Sal is just so good at what he does. Rest in peace, Sal, man. We miss you already.
Yeah, I mean, just like the size of the hands growing as it goes through the panels. Like, yeah, it's awesome stuff.
Yeah, and then like the energy above him, it just kind of, it's just so good. And the ripping of his shirt because he's too big for it. He does such a good job. I think back on my younger self who didn't like Sal Buscema's art, and I've said this before, but I want to kick my younger self. What was wrong with me?
Well, I think part of the reason why I wasn't the biggest fan of him back then was not because I wasn't a fan of his art. Like, I loved his Spectacular Spider-Man run, right? But at the end of that run, he was doing more like layouts, and other people were like similar to what we have here. But the other artists were like, their design was completely taking over what he was doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he was doing like, just like, it wasn't like pencils and inks, it was layouts and another penciler coming in, right? So that threw me off because I didn't like that stuff, but I associated it mentally with him, and I shouldn't have, right? So towards the end of the Clone Saga and things like that. But yeah, his huge fan of his art. I'm looking forward to some sort of new Spectacular Spider-Man omnibus getting released, because he was a huge artist on there. He did the first couple, some early issues in there. He does the cover of the issue 1, and then obviously around issue 200 that I showed a second ago.
Yeah. All right. God, we need to get Spectacular Spider-Man is epic, so I don't want to buy the Omnis. But Spectacular Spider-Man, it was definitely the second tier title, but boy, are there some great storylines in that. Need the Owl Octopus War. Need that in a collected edition. All right, let's see.
I bit the bullet and got all those ancillary omnis. I can't wait. So I got the web up too.
I know. I'm so trying to stop myself because I love Spider-Man. Of course, I want Spectacular. I want Web. I want the team ups. Excuse me. All right, let's get back to the Hulk. This is a Hulk show today. All right, Incredible Hulk 220, Fury at 5,000 fathoms. Ween is now credited as the plotter and Stern as the scripter, so you see we're getting the transition to Stern being the full-time writer. All right, so Captain Barracuda was looking for the device that Robinson Crusoe had been hiding on in his tent, but it turns out Crusoe is not whom he seems to be, but rather he is a scientist who invented this device to heal people, but it instead ends up devolving people into ape-like men. Well, in his shock, the scientist believed himself to be Robinson Crusoe because they had to explain that away somehow. Well, Captain Barracuda manages to take the device to his submarine, which he plans to use as a weapon. Crusoe is thus stolen as a hostage, and the Hulk follows after. Well, the sub resurfaces in an underwater cave where Barracuda uses the device on Crusoe and imprisons him. Well, the Hulk gets Crusoe out, and that's not his name, but I don't remember his actual name, so I'm just going with Robinson Crusoe. The Hulk gets him out, and the Hulk is then hit by the device, which causes him to revert back to Banner. In the end, Crusoe, who was also hit by the device and turned into an ape beast, he sets the device to overload, and he sends the Hulk to safety in a submarine. And I don't understand why Ape Crusoe didn't join him, but at least they saved the dog. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I'll say one thing about this issue. It's not unnecessarily complicated. Wait, no, hold on a second. It is unnecessarily complicated. The ape people look a little bit like Planet of the Apes. I feel like that's just an excuse to draw people that are going to look close to the Planet of the Apes. With the Hulk coming into the sub, early in the issue, it gave me that sort of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe when he's sneaking in on the Nazi sub. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I feel like everything here is too fantastical, and maybe if maybe some of this was established in some Namor comics, but you got this underwater city, you got these characters, this ray gun that devolves people. I don't know, it seems like it's just too much. So I'm happy that it's over with. It got dark really quick with everybody just getting murdered. Look, if anybody hurts that dog, we're gonna John Wick this stuff. But otherwise, I'm glad we're moving on and we're going home apparently. So
yeah. God, this was weirdly convoluted. I will say that at least one thing it does for me is I was questioning Captain Barracuda's motives because that had not been explained. Why does he want this device? Why does he care? We finally get the explanation that he plans to use the device on his enemies and become an unstoppable pirate, which, okay, fine. But yeah, and all the rest of it, it's just weirdly convoluted. But we're moving away from it. Let's just go. All right. Oh, I went one too many. There we go. Incredible Hulk 221. Show me the way to go home. Yes, please. Please. Okay. Roger Stern is the sole writer for this one, and Alfredo Alcala joins Sal on art. All right, so Bruce and the dog. I don't think the dog has a name, does it?
No, I don't remember them saying it.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Okay, so Bruce and the dog, importantly the dog, they're rescued by Dr. Walter Newell, a scientist on an oceanographic charting vessel, and the boat just so happens to be going to New York. Well, once at dock, Bruce slips through the authorities and takes a cab back to his apartment, and he nearly turns into the Hulk, but he holds off that feeling. And I like to think it's because he now has an emotional support animal in the dog, although I don't think that's where they were going. Once he gets back to his apartment, he meets up with Jim Wilson again and April Summers, but April now knows the truth and she's afraid of Bruce. And as this exchange occurs, Newell shows up to capture Bruce, and it turns out that Newell is Stingray, the sometimes friend, sometimes enemy of Namor. His appearance causes the change in Bruce to turn into the Hulk. Well, the Hulk easily defeats Stingray, but then decides to leave New York again, feeling betrayed by his friends. All right, Stojr.
So yeah, I don't have any recollection of Stingray, any personal acquaintance. I never read the Namor comics. I'm sure I've seen him crop up in some Avengers comics over the years, but so I didn't recognize him as the alter ego of Stingray. So I'm a little confused with this guy with this weird neck apparatus for the first couple pages of this issue. There's a little weird panel layout. It looks like the captain's talking to himself on page 408, and you don't have to bring it up because I know.
Yeah, we're gonna break it if I do.
Yeah, but that was weird and just a little mistake. Bruce running back and to April, and April now knowing. I don't really understand why April just goes into the room and cries. Like, she's been this like 70s like hip character and like things like that. I can understand her being like upset or not wanting them to be there, but like it feels like not to sound overly white knighty here, but like it feels like the writers didn't know how to write a woman. Like when she's upset, she just goes into the other room and cries in her chair. Like what is that solving? Like what are you doing right now? And like why are you upset? Like there was no reveal. He just came back. Like she already knew it was the Hulk. So that just kind of was odd. And ultimately, like this is maybe like the greatest example in this whole volume of like I don't know how Stingray's the good guy here. Like, what are you doing? Like you're causing all of these problems right now. Like he wasn't even hulking out. Like you're shooting people haphazardly, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts. It's an interesting and fun issue. But I think its whole purpose here is just to get Hulk out of New York and not have him come back.
Yeah. I was going to say, I am glad that we finally got Banner and the Hulk back to New York, because I was worried that the supporting cast that we had created was just being forgotten about. But even then, that plot with the Constrictor feels like that has been forgotten about, and I'll say with certainty, at least for this volume, it has. It never comes back again. We still don't know why Jim Wilson has sought out the Hulk. This issue doesn't help with any of that, but I think you're right, Stojr. I think the whole point is this is to get the Hulk out of New York, that we're going to. And we do have a new writer coming on, right? So this is maybe just trying to get back to normalcy for the Hulk. Okay. Having said that, though, this next issue is a weird one. Incredible Hulk number 222, Feeding Billy. Len Wein returns for the script. Jim Starlin is credited as the plotter and with layouts, and then Alfredo Alcala on the finish art. All right, so the Hulk is wandering through upstate New York when he is intercepted by the army, who put him to sleep with a gas grenade. But on the battlefield, there are two children who manage to take Hulk away to a cave where he turns back into Bruce Banner. Well, it turns out that these kids have a younger brother named Billy who was exposed to radiation and became a large monster that developed a taste for humans. Well, Billy the Monster then confronts Banner, who naturally turns into the Hulk. They have a nice brawl, and they destroy the cave with Billy inside.
All right. Upstate New York looks like Utah. Like,
Yeah, that was my thought too, right? Is that not Arches National Park right there?
Yeah, like, so yeah, like upstate New York doesn't look like this at all. This is, I don't know why they have it that way, other than the fact that like he just left New York and they want to get him to Texas in the next issue, and this is not, there's not a straight line between Utah and Texas. You'd have to go past Texas and then come back and whatever. The art in this kind of fits the vibe of this issue, so I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite. I don't mind this sort of like dark and grittier look of this, although there's some panels that look a little weird. Again, not asking you to pull it up because I don't want to break the stream, but the panel around the cave-in almost looks like one of those modern what's his name? The modern who's the guy that did Daredevil? I'm blanking. Yeah, that page.
Malieve?
No, the Sin City.
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller, thank you. I just completely I didn't get my second cup of coffee, so I'm completely blanking out. One of those like modern Frank Miller drawings that people complain about, right? Like weird looking Superman or Batman. It's just an awkward look to it. I mean, it's a really dark story, right? Like you get these two little kids that are feeding their brother, and their parents got eaten by the brother, I guess, and are part of that. So kind of a messed up little story, and I'm fine with it from a one and done, but I'm not, it's not a great story. It's just kind of weird and dark, and it almost feels dark just to be dark, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I got the feeling that this was a fill-in issue, right? Having Len Wein return for just one issue that has no connectivity to other ones kind of hints at that. Plus that depiction of upstate New York, which seems to include that arch rock from Moab. That sure seems like this was not planned for. Now, granted, I'm no expert on the Adirondacks. I've not really explored New York at all. I consider myself a Westerner, even though I currently live in the southeast coast, right? If such a landmark as that exists in New York, I am unfamiliar with it. And the art, I do think, takes a little game.
Obviously in the desert. Like,
Well,
it's not a desert in upstate New York.
Yeah. The art certainly takes some getting used to. I admit that I did a jump scare when I first turned to that page with that splash panel and the way the Hulk looks there. But the way the Hulk looks on the next page, and gosh, my the way my computer works is not, the way my camera works does not help me share that. It looks quite a lot better on the next page, so that's fine. And as you say, it's dark artwork for a dark story, and that does kind of work. But I'm fairly convinced this was a fill-in.
Yeah.
All right.
It's probably something that they had written and in the bag and just, pulled it out when they needed it.
Yep. Let's go to Hulk 223, The Curing of Dr. Banner. And I like that cover. Look at that cover on that one. Okay, this one is written solely by Roger Stern, illustrated by Sal Buscema, and embellished by Joseph Rubinstein. We are also promised a bold new saga in the credits here, so here we go. All right, as the Hulk is bounding across the U.S., he lands near a couple on a date in Texas. But the Hulk changes back into Bruce Banner while he is still conscious, and somehow Banner knows that the gamma radiation in his body has been depleted and that he has been cured. Banner then finds himself at an airfield where he meets up with Spad McCracken, the pilot, and manages to convince Spad to fly him to Gamma Base. But once at Gamma Base, it is discovered that the leader has taken over. All right, Soju, your thoughts on this one?
I mean, this would have been interesting, like if you had, and I'm not an expert on Hulk mapping, but if you had taken like the 6 or 8 issues from when Sal first took over Hulk that we don't get in this volume, 194 through 200, and you had moved that into this volume, and then ended the volume with the last story, and kicked off a new volume here. From a writing standpoint, you would have had like more of a cohesive, like Roger Stern. Granted, he co-plotted or co-wrote some of the earlier issues, but if this is really like the storytelling point, everything else that was prior to this was about shedding or closing the loop on the old stories. And then this is, okay, now we're going to kick off this new story and kind of go from here and have the leader kind of kick off. Granted, you have like little plot threads and reasoning for what you're going to see here that was established much earlier, and it makes you wonder if like they had that mystery guy just around, but they maybe Len had a different idea of what he was going to do with him, and then this is just Roger picking up on that, because there's really nothing to that mystery other than he's an amnesiac mystery guy around. Yeah. The solo Sal art in here is just amazing, right? So the 2 pages on the next page, as well as the de-evolution from Hulk to Banner, on the following pages, just looks awesome. I will take a Sal solo book any day of the week for this type of stuff. But I don't think that there's any like real explanation in here as to like why he is better, other than they just kind of hand wavy say like he burned it off all of the stuff that was there, and now he's better. I got excited when I saw the landlord with the other characters, which you thought we were gonna like leave them behind, like why are they still here, like the with this magician, and but I guess it's a transition to bring the magician with Jim, as we'll see going forward. But I got excited when I saw the landlord because I thought it was going to be the guy that fixed the wall again. For like a brief second, and I was like, yes, they have him like recurring, but alas, it's just a crappy slumlord landlord guy. So, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see where this goes. It's good to get some direction. Like, I feel like that's what this is giving us with a villain like the leader here. This is going to last more than one issue, obviously, because we have a cliffhanger here. So, I'm looking forward to see where this goes.
Yeah, man, I liked seeing Sal's pencils again, right? It was great to see him again. I had praised the drawing of Banner's transformation into the Hulk in issue 219, and I find it awesome that we get the opposite series of drawings in this one, right? The Hulk gets smaller and weaker until there's only Banner left, where usually we see that when the Hulk is asleep or something else like that, right? I mentioned before I really like the cover on this one. The shading of the Hulk is interesting, although I admit I'm confused as to why the trees are peeking through his right arm, right? If he's transparent, why is that the only thing that's peeking out through him? Why not something else in the background? But, whatever. I like the conceit of this issue, that now Banner is cured of being of the Hulk, but he's still likely going to have to face some of his villains. So how is he going to do that now that he's been cured, right? And how does he know that he's been cured, right? Did he just feel it? Is this a reasonable assumption to make? That I don't know. All right, let's move on to issue 224. All right, this is Follow the Leader. All right, the leader succeeds in capturing Bruce Banner, and while Doc Samson was able to use his strength to break free, the leader has implanted a hypnotic suggestion that does not allow Samson to harm the leader. But when the leader leaves to capture Quartermain, Samson frees Bruce and General Ross, and the three hatch a plan to revive the Hulk. And it sure seems like they do, except that it's the Hulk robot being piloted remotely by Banner, and once the leader discovers the deception, he is able to easily defeat the Hulk bot. All right, what are your thoughts on this one, Stojr?
So I like it. I like that we have some like wackiness here. We got a murder module, robot Hulk. I like that. I think we all remember the great stories with Kurgo, the alien warlord. I mean, how can we forget all of that? So there's a lot of like weirdness in this issue. I think from a plot direction, though, some of the weirdness that's here, other than just like the explanation of the amnesic leader, is just like why some of these things like work and why they don't. Like, so like Doc is under like a mental like break where he can't hurt the leader, but like the leader has no problem with him like just freeing everybody. Like, so like why wouldn't he have a why wouldn't he just have like a mental block that is just completely paralyzing him or something like that, right? I mean, he kind of has a little bit with Clay. Maybe he just can't. Maybe that's because he's played this trick on Doc before or something similar. Like Doc can overwhelm him. I don't really understand why there's like a feedback just because he's like remote piloting things. Like the idea of like remote piloting something back then always seems to have like some sort of like direct mind connection, as opposed to like the way we think about it now is like it's a video feed and a game controller. Like why does it need to be this overly complicated? But I think that's like a product of its time. So I think it's good. Like the Hulk robot like got me at first. Like I didn't know it was a robot until he actually got beat up. So what did you think?
Yeah. While I did not know about the Hulk robot, I thought it was pretty obvious that it wasn't the Hulk when it was first introduced, right? Because it never talks, right? And then, of course, we have Bruce talking off panel at one point, and of course that sealed the belief. Okay, yeah, this is not actually the Hulk. And I'm glad it was a robot, not Bruce. While I haven't read the previous volumes, I do recall in an earlier issue Banner saying that he voluntarily became the Hulk once again to save some people. So I thought it would have been unfortunate if we went back to that well again, right? So having that fake out, I appreciate. And I appreciate that Stern is also gathering back together all those loose threads that we had dangling throughout the book and trying to make some sense of it. Now, he's not pulling all of it together, but yeah, the amnesiac man, we've got the supporting characters from New York kind of pulled in together again, so he's trying to fix it up and do something. All right. Sorry, if I seemed a little distracted as you were going, I was trying to find our favorite Mason again to get his name. Morris K. Goldstein is our Mason. I feel like we need to have an award just for him, right? The best unexpected destruction in a book, the Morris K. Goldstein Destructo Award. Something like that.
And I'll comment that like the one of the reasons why the robot kind of threw me is like if he did take his powers back, like I wasn't sure if like, all right, are we going to get like an earlier version of the Hulk now that like they gave him his Hulk powers back, and in doing so, he can't talk yet, right? Like he's like a simpler version of the Hulk or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this is before during the Peter David era. They do a lot of play with like all of the different versions of the Hulk and stuff like that. So this is a little bit before that.
Geez, Stojer, we've been going for 2.5 hours. I only just realized that. Let's keep going. Let's try to wrap this up. We're nearly at the end here. All right, Incredible Hulk number 225. Is there Hulk after death? All right, so Banner had been knocked unconscious when the Hulk bot was defeated, so Samson and Ross rush to find him medical aid. However, Samson's solution is to douse Banner in gamma rays and to thus revive the Hulk. Well, Samson succeeds and then tricks the Hulk into throwing him out of the building so that Samson could defeat the leader's mental block, preventing him from leaving, except that he goes right back into the building, so I don't know what that was about. The leader then discovers the two Gamma guys and launches his own attack, specifically using a device that turns the Hulk's strength upon himself. But the Hulk can get angrier and thus stronger, and so he overcomes the leader's device, and the leader teleports away, leaving the Hulk to now turn on Doc Samson for tricking him. All right, your thoughts on this one?
I thought it was a fun team up between the Hulk and Doc Samson. I like everything that's moving forward here. I think that maybe it's one of the first appearances of the Green Door, which is the ability for the Hulk to come back to life. Because it's not really explained if whether Banner died there for a split second, and then the Hulk, or if they just didn't properly check him or whatever. So I think this is a good wrap up to the storyline. I don't actually think the leader is gone, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we knew the Hulk was going to have to come back at some point, right? And after the fake out with the robot, this seemed like the most predictable way, and that's fine. I feel like something about the Hulk's voice is off a little bit now to me. His sentences feel a little too complex now as they're being written under Stern. They're still simplified, but there's something about it that Len Wein just did differently that I thought was more closely aligned to what I would expect the Hulk to talk. And I'm not sure I can really point my finger at it. Sal's art is great as always. Again, he is a master of having those little rows of smaller panels that sees a slow change. In this one, it was the leader laughing and slowly coming to the realization that the Hulk was overpowering him. And I wish I could pull that up on the comic viewer, but it's fine. It was great. Really enjoyed it. All right, last one. This is Incredible Hulk 226, Big Monster on Campus. Joe Sinnott joined Sal on art. All right, so after a quick beatdown of Doc Samson and General Ross, the Hulk leaves Gamma Base and heads for Desert State University, Bruce Banner's alma mater. Hulk is then plagued by Banner's memories and is eventually confronted with a statue of Socrates with the philosopher's advice of know thyself chiseled at the bottom. Well, this seems to have a profound impact on the Hulk, which leads to his converting back to Banner. All right, your thoughts on this one, Stojer?
I like the art in this issue a lot. There's a huge double page spread in here. The shots of the Hulk, in a campus uniform. The idea of showing Socrates on the last page. Like I think, and the transformation panels that we get again. All of this is really solid. The story I think is okay. Like it's showing some introspectiveness. I think like there's this whole idea of like, what are you doing with these like two personalities? How do they connect? And it has me interested in like where they're going to go with Doc Samson and the Hulk, right? Like, so it's a little hard to judge this because I don't know what the next issue is, I guess is my point, right? So, I think like I might like this a lot more if this is the beginning of like the new status quo, but as an issue by itself, it's just okay. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I'm interested that this seems to be moving towards a more psychological look at the Hulk, and I'd be curious to see how Stern continues with that. But of course, that's for Volume 9, so we're not getting that this time. And just in case an explanation is needed, on page 510, right, as we're kind of culminating here, Stern writes on that final panel, quote, "But nothing can ever destroy true wisdom, not strength of limb, nor mindless ignorance, no, not even hemlock." And out of nowhere, that panel of not even Hemlock seems kind of weird, but he's referencing the death of Socrates, right? Socrates was the first Greek philosopher to really shift the focus of philosophy away from what we call the natural sciences to looking at human nature instead. But during that, he questioned things like laws and Athenian democracy, and as such, he got in trouble with the polis of Athens, and that led to his being convicted of, quote, introducing new gods and corrupting the youth, for which he was sentenced to death by drinking hemlock being a poisonous plant. So, I get to bring in my knowledge of ancient history finally in the end there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I will just to comment on like where this goes. So I flipped through the first couple pages of the next volume. So we're gonna get, you know, that introspective look with Samson and Hulk going forward. We're gonna get Hulk hanging out in this place, so you get a little bit of a status quo at least for the first issue or two. We're also gonna get that annual with the X-Men that we read before with Angel and Iceman and the Sentinels and stuff like that. So that's what people have to look forward to in the next volume.
All right, awesome. Let's see. Let's talk about bonus material. We have your typical original art in this volume with an unused cover of Hulk number 28 by Dave Cockrum, and some covers. Whoops, went ahead there. We get some covers from some collected editions. I think the standout here, though, is the first 5 pages of an unfinished story which Bernie Wrightson and Len Wein were doing. Right, Bernie Wrightson doing the art. The Hulk falls into a cave and fights anthropomorphic bunnies who then worship him as the Messiah. And this looks amazing. And have we frozen again? It seems like the feed dropped, but you and I seem to be okay together, Stojr.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can hear you okay.
Well, I hope that's still recording then. Anyway, that artwork looks amazing. That story looked amazing. I don't know if you were able to read it, Stojr, but I would have loved to have seen where that went.
No, I didn't. I just kind of flipped through the bonus materials. I didn't actually read it, so I'll have to check it out.
Okay. That is all good. Well, let's I mean, I don't see why the thing has stopped, but
the stream looks okay.
Does it? Okay, I guess it's just something wrong on my side. All right, let's get into the ratings. As I mentioned at the top here, I do not have the greatest knowledge or understanding of the Hulk. Before this volume, I've read the first 2 Epic collections, a couple issues of the Peter David run, and when I was young, and then I have read Planet Hulk. But that's been about it. But this seems to be an era of the Hulk where the creators are trying to find out just what to do with the character, right? We start in New Mexico at Gamma Base, as we would expect, but there's a series of adventures in the microverse before Hulk moves to New York and gets a new supporting cast, but that seems too restrictive of the Hulk, and he eventually makes his way back out west. And despite the meanderings, most of the plot points seem to at least be resolved, with the exception of the Constrictor and his attempts to capture or harm Jim Wilson. And then there was another one that I mentioned as we went through it that I forgot about. So we still don't know why that's happening, at least not in this volume. So while this felt rudderless at times, there was still a lot of great and interesting Hulk moments where he just bashes the heck out of things. And the way Len Wein writes the Hulk just feels like classic Hulk, the way he should be. And while I'm not convinced yet that Stern holds on to that, we have been getting some hints that the Hulk may not be the same after Samson and Ross revived the Hulk and Banner had been cured, right? Or after the Banner had been cured. So there's a reason why, there might be a reason why the Hulk sounds different that hasn't yet been explained, or at least I'm theorizing here. And of course, there's Sal Buscema's art, right? While he has multiple partners on finishes during the book, I do like how clean and crisp his art can be with the right inker, and he has perfected those transformation panels that are such an important part of the horror that is the Hulk. And honestly, I hadn't paid enough attention to who the various artists were on the Hulk, so I was a little unaware that we had such a long run of Sal on this book. But now that I've seen it, I get why. He's really great for this character. All right, overall, I am going to give this volume an 8. There's a lot to enjoy here, but there's also a lot of strange experimentation that I don't think really landed. All right, Stojr?
Yeah, so I went into this expecting sort of like a lot of one and done stories, and I think we got that for the most part. I expected a lot of like meandering, kind of Hulk going into a small town and moving on to the next one. That's not exactly what we got here, although some of the stories might be close to that. I love the art. I think all of that is extremely solid. I don't think there's anything terrible in this volume. I just think it just lacks some direction at certain points. I would have liked to seen more connective tissue. I think like the Jarella stuff has a lot of connective tissue, and then the end with the leader stuff, and in the middle it just kind of wanders. I kind of walked into this with those expectations, but the amazing art, the stories as single issues, were for the most part good, right? They were, they were corny at times, but that's what you expect from that era. So I'm gonna rate this a 7 out of 10. I think it's above average. I think it's really good. I might adjust my ratings when we look at other Hulk volumes, but I think there's a lot of really strong Hulk out there when it comes to Peter David's writing. When we look at volumes across that, and I would have liked to seen more just Sal's art on throughout this.
Yeah. All right, so with Stojr 7 and my 8, that gives us a combined rating of 7.5. All right, let's try to wrap this up before things break again. Future episodes, next time we meet, I don't have my copy in front of me, but we're going to read Captain America Epic Collection Volume 16, Streets of Poison. That is going to be live stream April 12th. We'll probably start actually at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And then the results of the poll, maybe not a big shocker. This is going to be DC Finest Teen Titans. The volume starts in 1983. This is the Judas Contract, so we're going to read that one on May 10th. Hello there. You've got one of your BAMFs joining you.
Yeah, everybody's invading now. I think I've been on too long.
Yeah, we have been doing this for a long time. Okay, so we'll wrap this up real quick. The poll for our next volume should be live. That's going to be the June 14th poll. Stojr, I think you and I decided that we're going to make sure we can cover both DC and Marvel. Since we're going to do the DC Teen Titans one, next one is going to be a Marvel poll. One after that, we'll make a DC poll. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's up and running. Go ahead and vote on that to see what we do next. Of course, fourth Sunday of every month, we're going to do our fanfare live stream where we talk about, well, just general comic stuff, what we're collecting, and so forth. And I think, X-Men, one-shots, every day, dropping at 3 p.m. We're starting a new volume, Wounded Wolf. Now I think that's everything. All right, Stojr, any other final thoughts?
No, other than I remember listening to some of Curtis's podcasts, and he broke up these into multiple episodes, and maybe that's what we're gonna have to. Maybe that's the trick. Maybe we have to split them in half or something like that, because going through issue by issue, there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, and I don't want to short shift anything, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we need to split it up. There must be a reason why Curtis did that. So, all right, I think that's it for us, because this thing might break again if we don't get out of here. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Again, follow us on YouTube. We're going to read, rate, and review a full big Epic Collection volume once a month. Well, maybe we'll split that into twice a month. And one-shots daily for the X-Men, plus random things here and there. All right, that's it. Here's the outro. Take care.